And like that, we back, fellas. This is Unpacked. I think we up to like episode 10. Unpacked, presented by the To Be Fair Show and
the G Shit Podcast.
And fellas, I think we got a good one this week. A really, really good one. In which it probably kind of hit home to at least half of the panel. It looked like we talking about HBCUs. HBCUs, have they sold us out? Is college still worth it? I've heard somebody throw this out there. Is the Divine Nine the new BOULE? Some interesting claims. So what I'd like to do, we're going to introduce the panel. We're going to switch it up a little bit. Instead of telling necessarily where everybody can find you at, let everybody know your like if you went to a HBCU, a PWI, no college, just a little bit of your background so we can give context to where our perspective is coming from. So again, I'm Q, host of the show. Went to North Carolina Central University, HBCU in Durham. Truthfully, I did 5 years there. But G
went to school, Winston-Salem State University, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, HBCU.
Yep. Oh, and as well, I worked briefly at Johnson Smith University as well. Just kind of put in a little context to that. Johnny.
Oh yeah, what's up? It's your boy Johnny P. You can catch me at the To Be Fair Show. PWI baby, University of South Carolina. Forever to thee. Gotta represent.
All right. FBA Trey. You muted, my boy.
I went to a PWI, USC Gamecocks. I wish I went to a HBCU, but
you said you do? Oh, you jumping the gun a little bit. Hold on.
Yeah, we'll get more into that later.
Hey, Black.
Yo, what's up? Proud HBCU graduate from Howard University in Washington, D.C. I also am employed at an HBCU right now currently, so a lot of love for the HBCU community.
Yep. Okay. All right. So again, just giving a little context to some of these deep dives and whether it's all love, whether there's some critiques, understand that a lot of this is homegrown, and a perspective from, I think, G, you worked at a HBCU as well, correct?
No, I never worked. Well,
at least adjacently. Upward Bounds would have been. It was on campus, right?
It was actually like an independent agency, but did a bunch of work with HBCUs because it was college access. So
okay. So I'll start off with this question. Trey, you kind of alluded to it a little bit. For whether you went to HBCU, PWI, would you do the same or would you do it differently if you had the chance? Would you go back to HBCU, enjoy your experience, or would you switch it up and go PWI, vice versa?
And the only way I would have been able to go to an HBCU would have taken some scamming because the ones I want to go to are in North Carolina, not from South Carolina. So I went to USC because of scholarship and because they had the best program for my field. But I see so many people from A&T around here that are very successful, and it would have been cool to be networked with them because a lot of people I went to USC with. It's a good network, don't get me wrong, but when I go to these games, HBCUs, it's a different culture and a different feel that you get there that was definitely missing from USC. It was definitely a white school, very fratty.
Okay. Let's go around. I guess G.
Yeah, man. So when I graduated, I applied to 3 schools and only got into 1, Winston-Salem State, and so I tried to go to Greensboro and Charlotte at the time. If I was at that young age and I had an option to go somewhere else at the time, I probably would have chose something different. But in retrospect, I'm glad I went the route I went, and whether it's by choice or not, like it ended up being a great experience. And just in comparing my experience to other friends who went to other schools, to what Trey said, the culture the culture at a HBCU is so unique, it's so diverse, so many different types of Black folks that you interact with. Even growing up in Durham for myself, I felt like that was different, just meeting all different types of people, even though you right down the road in Winston. So I thought it was a dope experience. And if I had kids, I would encourage them to go to a HBCU for sure.
Johnny,
Oh,
would you stay PWI forever to D? I think that's what you say. I probably said that wrong, but you always say it.
oh, nigga, no Drizzy, bro. Don't do my shit. But I don't know. I've never thought about would I do it differently. I enjoyed, my time there. I don't feel like even growing up in Rock Hill that I was lacking a Black culture thing.
Mhm.
So I mean, I always grew up in Black culture. So I think one of the advantages is when you do go PDI, you do get a more like real world representation of what you're going to face out there. Like, I mean, there's very times often, there's not many times where we go into workplaces where it's all Black or, so I think going to PWI, that's one of the, benefits that I got. You get to meet and interact with different cultures. I mean, of course, there's challenges with that, with identity and, trying to figure out your own way in the world. There's definitely challenges, but I think there's benefits too. So I don't know if I'll change it.
Okay. So I guess I'll piggyback off of where you was just at a little bit, and I ask this question: do y'all feel that it is important to have some of those post, I guess, high school Black spaces where you are the majority for a moment of time while you're actually finding and figuring out yourself?
I don't want to jump in, but I want to circle back at some point to what John said, where basically going to a PWI teaches you to assimilate, and I think that's part of the problem. You know. And we do need our spaces to answer your question though as well.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get my spiel
Oh,
on
okay. I'll wait.
Oh, my bad. I guess I skipped you. My bad.
on how I got to HBCU. So basically, like growing up, all I wanted to do was go to UNC Chapel Hill and be a Tar Heel. That was pretty
Okay.
much like all I knew. And I actually was in like this advanced program where they kind of got a lot of the best Black kids from around the state, and you go and stay at Chapel Hill for like a week and get to see the college experience and everything. And they got to meet their diversity quota, but they want the best Black students they could find. And I was sold like. But then I came back. I was in high school, and I actually had an African American history class, and the teacher was a teacher from Johnson C. Smith University, and he was young. He had just graduated, so I remember him being really young, and it kind of just got me tapped in to our culture. And then I went to a program called Upper Bound at Johnson C. Smith, and that's when I really kind of learned way more about the HBCU lifestyle and experience. And so I had a change of heart. And then I was like, all right, I think I want to go to HBCU. And the first question I asked was, well, what are the best HBCUs? And I only applied to Howard, Clark, and I actually got into A&T, like just at a recruitment affair. Like they didn't even make me apply. They were like, yeah, you're in. Like just saw your transcripts and grades. So had a full ride to Chapel Hill. After they found out I was going to Howard, first it was like a half tuition scholarship. I told them I changed my mind. They bumped it up to a full ride, and it
At
was
Howard?
something. Yeah, no, at Chapel Hill, I didn't even really get any money
Oh,
initially.
shit. Okay.
But
Okay.
Chapel Hill was kind of throwing this money at me, and I was like, I knew I wanted to be further away from home. But the thing that got me was I remember being a senior in high school, and you get that question from older people like, what school you going to? Where you going? And I would always kind of say the schools I'm considering, and I was like their reaction when I would say Howard or mention HBCU, they would start talking about a different history, and the excitement was just different surrounding it. And so, I was just locked in on this school. Like it's the best school I had never visited in my life, and I'd already accepted it. And eventually, I did visit over the summer before attending. But it was just something about the reaction I was receiving just for mentioning that I was accepted into this school, and we'll go more into it.
Gotcha. And yeah, I guess I give my quick spiel. Where I know me, I was super first generation college. Well, I guess maybe semi because my mother actually went for like a semester to like a HBCU, but outside of that, super first generation college student. Where I don't think I ever thought about college until the like second semester of my senior year. Like literally grew up right off Bettiesville Road. If you're from Charlotte, you understand what that where that is. Um, and in the community, we didn't have anybody that went to college. Like to be honest, I would say 90% of males in my neighborhood dropped out of high school around ninth, 10th grade. Just the reality of it. So there wasn't like a blueprint or anything that was put in front of me. And so even with that, what it ended up leading me to was the fact that like when I have all those influences, I wasn't focused as a high school student, right? So luckily took SAT and I test really well. So like I made fairly decent on a SAT, and so I played drums. And a natural translation from playing drums is that you want to play in a marching band in college. The 5 marching bands in college end up being the HBCUs. And so, in all honesty, like I made such a like a maybe even like a low hanging fruit decision of where I was going to go to school / where who would accept me based primarily off of that. But yeah, even through those happenstances of chance, I know that that decision is one that I personally would never change again. I mean, I personally wouldn't change because it literally gave me the space to shape me into who exactly I am today. Um, but yeah, like I said, that's my my quick little tangent on it. But
Can I respond to Trey?
oh, go ahead.
Or well, Trey said you said what was your statement again about a simulation?
No, I'm saying basically you say going to a PWI is a real reflection of the world. You know what I'm saying? Isn't that just assimilation? Like you can learn to be a good employee for a nice white man versus like learning how to, be amongst your people and build with your people. Like I think we can all be able to talk to white folks. We don't have to like go to their schools to be able to communicate with them, just like they don't have to go to our schools to be able to communicate with us, you know? So it almost sounds like the white man's ice is colder type of thing.
No, I mean I wouldn't say that, but I mean I think just like there's people from China and India that come and go to school here that learn things from us. I mean, I think there's a lot of benefit of being around people that aren't necessarily, like you. You can gain a lot of things. You get to take things in a different perspective. I value the black spaces, but I was always, kind of comfortable enough in my blackness not to I never, to honestly, Peter, I mean, HBCUs, even coming from a black family, my parents went to HBCUs. It wasn't really something that was pushed on me, honestly. And like you say, coming from South Carolina, there's not really that many options as far as HBCUs and the things I wanted to do. And, what I was interested in, South Carolina was the best option. So, I mean, I think it would be hard to, do something that's not necessarily the best for you just to, be around people that, look like you. That's my only point.
A quick pushback. Those other groups don't. I don't think they're in a situation as us where they have to like fight to be against, a government or entities and all the other things that are targeting them. If anything, they're propped up. So them assimilating is good, but if, it seems like when we assimilate into their realms, we end up getting in the back seat versus the HBCU. Like when you weigh the pros and the cons, it seems like at least you won't be discriminated against for like racial reasons versus at PWI. You get to be around them, but they may not respect you or treat you worth anything. So does that balance out to where it makes it worth it? You get what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, I think my shit freezing up, but
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm a throw to an adjacent conversation just to kind of mix it up a little bit. And I'll ask y'all this. This is more so like a culture question. Did Dion exploit HBCU culture for self gain?
The opposite is true. They exploited him.
Yeah, exploit is a tough word. I mean, I feel like he brought more exposure, to not only to Jackson State's program, but to HBCUs in general. On a national scale, we've seen games on ESPN and coverage that we haven't seen in years. I think all of us want to rise, man, and I feel like Black people, we have a tendency to want to box each other in. Would it be ideal if he'd stayed there longer or went to another HBCU? That would be dope too. But I also see his vision of like, I need to get to this bigger platform because, it's not only about HBCUs. He has a family too. He's trying to put his children in the best position to win, to get the best competition. So I think what he did, he never had to do. And even if it was 2 years, I think, it was a
Yeah, I
lot.
think it was between 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
Might have
that was a
been
whole
3
lot of
years.
exposure. He was paying money out of his own pocket to boost the facilities. We all been
Right.
us been to HBCUs. We know that we lack in so many different resources. So to have a multi-millionaire coach come to your school, he don't really need your money. He's using his own money to boost you, to boost your cachet. Like their merchandise sales are through the roof. The school gets percentages of that. So you want somebody like him at an HBCU, but when he left, people don't talk about Eddie George, all these other big name
Shout out
NFL
Tennessee
players,
State.
who went to start coaching. He opened the door for them too. Like, hey, this is an avenue for me to start my coaching career. Some will stay, some will want to rise, but most coaches, want to rise in the ranks of coaching to kind of show that all right, I did it on this level, and let me do it on this level, and maybe one day he want to do it in NFL. But the goal is to always keep going upwards. I don't think he exploited them. I think it was a mutual benefit on both sides, and I think Jackson State really benefited the most, honestly, from the attention that they received.
Okay, gotcha. I guess I'll ask this last question. Well, this isn't last because nobody else has responded. But going to what you were saying, how did you feel about the exit? Like his
Um,
exit. That's been like a critique that I've heard. It may it's been a while since I thought about it, but it might even be like a critique that I had where going into a scenario where you understand what the situation is, where obviously HBCUs are typically going to be underfunded. They're going to have worse facilities in comparison to like the PWIs. But then leaving and critiquing those exact same things that you understood that you was walking into, um, especially in the sense of them possibly, I mean, still trying to upgrade their recruitment, get better candidates, get better sponsorships, XYZ. I don't know. There was a piece where I almost felt like it was like, you know what I mean, not exactly this, but kind of torching the house that you built on your way out.
I mean, it's like a breakup. It's not a clean way to break. And I know what you
Mhm.
mean about some things you know about going in, but you don't really know until you in there. Till you behind the scenes, and you're like, damn, it is bad.
Mhm.
Damn, it is mold in the shower. Damn, it's like the administration is kind of shady and not look so. Until you really immersed into these institutions, do you really kind of see like the writing on the wall? So I didn't look at it as him torching them. It's more so like holding things accountable. A lot of what they were trying to torch him as well, but I
Mhm.
feel like he's holding them accountable. Like I had to make people aware of these issues so these issues can be solved. But I'm also only one man. Like Deion Sanders can't save an entire college or HBCUs in general. He can only kind of be a stepping stone. So I feel like I just feel like he went too hard on him. Like, we know what be going on at HBCUs. I work at one.
Mm-hmm.
It's not perfect behind the scenes, man. There's a lot of people that do need to be called out sometime, because it's
So you
this
feel like it
attitude.
was more or less like necessary critique.
I don't know, man. That's subjective, whether it's necessary or not. Like, he's in the public eye a lot. He's getting these questions over and over again, like, why you left, why you left, why you left. Like, you gotta answer. You gotta kind of give your reasoning behind it. Eventually, it's not like he just went live and started lambasting them. It's like, nah, he's getting like sit
Maybe
down.
I caught the wrong interviews. I almost felt like that was the exit a little bit, but
Yeah. I mean, like, this dude's a winner, man. And so it's like, if you in a position where you feel like people are not giving you the opportunity or putting you in a position for you to win, an institution to win, and you can look around and see the problems and they're not changing, then you're gonna somewhat take it personal, and you might challenge and critique some things. Like, I'm hearing
Mhm.
he's getting pushback from the president, the administration. A lot of people
Mhm.
don't like the attention. Like, they like the benefits of the attention, but they don't like the one person getting the attention either. So, think about, you have a football coach that is more popular than the president or the provost or
Mhm.
professors who've been there tenured for 20, 30 years. Like, so although they are liking it on one end, a lot of them be seething in the background as well. Like, and sometimes we kind of got that crab effect where we'll pull each other down. So I don't know. Maybe I missed some interviews and where he was
Mhm.
like super critical, but I didn't see anything where I was like, damn, Dion's like really going in on them. Like I say, I work at HBCU, so and I went to one. So a lot of things I was hearing him say, and I was like, he kind of right. And we got this thing of like, well, should we say it out loud? Should we say it in the white
Mhm.
people? We should just keep this in the barbershop. I mean, put it out there, man, so the shit can get fixed. Like, we gotta stop hiding things sometime, because that's why shit just stays like it is, and people develop this attitude of, well, this everybody knows this is how it is, this is how it goes. But now I put it out there, and now you gotta fix it because people know what's wrong now.
Nah, I feel it. G, what's your thoughts?
On Dion leaving, or just the whole spiel, or what's the, because
Kind of however you want to get into. I can say the original kind of prompt, which was that Dion exploit HBCU culture for self gain. What do he say? Hey, band, play my theme music.
yeah.
Bringing in all the rappers XYZ. Or was it like a beneficial mutual gain? Maybe Jackson State and all the money that Dion did put towards, even his salary, to my understanding, went straight towards the facilities and the funding and scholarship. Yeah, just what's your thoughts?
Man, there's no question it was mutually beneficial,
Mm-hmm.
but we talking prime time. You feel me? This is a generational figure when it comes to athletics. And when you talk about influence, impact, who's going to get the best of what in this relationship, I think another thing people are not paying attention to is also where college football was going versus where it was when he first got there. Dion saw,
You talking
if
about
you
the
didn't,
NIL?
exactly, and they already struggling to get recruits and things of that nature because of the facilities. To really play college football at its highest level today, you need a budget. You need a salary. You need to be able to go out and pay these people
You know
and
what you need is boosters. You need rich
boosters. You need a
boosters.
little
Yeah.
bit of everything, and
Here we go.
unfortunately, most HBCUs don't have those types of resources to compete
Mhm.
with some of these, more big major schools, like even a University of South Carolina, for example. You know what I'm saying? So it's, which is a SEC conference, one of these power conference schools. So if you're talking about Dion taking advantage, like he could have got his first start at a lot of places. He didn't have to choose Jackson State, and he chose Jackson State. he brought a lot of attention to Jackson State and extended that to other HBCUs, helped normalize that in a lot of the conversation. A lot of stuff sprung off of that too in other leagues. Chris Paul started doing the HBCU Classic in the NBA. Like it really helped adopt more support for HBCUs in a public way. And again, Dion, not only did he leave because of the lack of top-notch resources, is also the reality of what the sport is. It's a pay-to-play sport. So he wasn't going to be able to have that check to cash it at Jackson State like he does at Colorado.
Gotcha. Hey, fellas, before I guess Johnny or Trey go. So does everybody kind of like echo those similar sentiments? If so, I got a question I want to build on from that.
I mean, the only thing I might add to that is I don't want to spread rumors or anything like that. But wasn't he getting robbed? Weren't they like not paying him what they agreed to out of the admissions and things like that? And if that's the case, then he was.
No, I thought he was donating his entire salary.
But stuff was coming up missing from his office and stuff too. Like he wasn't. There were incidents where he had stuff come up missing, some jewelry and some other stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think they had a profit sharing deal too.
Sponsorships and funding through the football organization that wasn't going back to the team, but they were.
I kind of do remember this. Yeah.
Right. So it's misappropriating funds, common thing. But
that's a classic. Well, let me steer away from slander of our HBCUs at the moment.
Saying all.
Central. You know how many chances we didn't had and stole money. But let me ask you this question since we're on it. This could be really, really quick. But I think you did bring up a point that I hadn't thought. But I think this is fairly a panel of sports enthusiasts to an extent. So I'll ask this question. Deion's initial push when he went to Jackson State and what a lot of people rallied around was the idea of being able to bring some of these marquee, like he got the best player, wide receiver / DB in his class. I forget his name at the moment, but like the idea of bringing
Travis Hunter.
Yeah, Travis, where being able to bring these athletes equates to money in general, right? What G did speak about was the landscape of football, i.e., like Nick Saban as retiring, has changed drastically over the last 1-2 years. Where one, it was the introduction of the transfer portal, and then you had NIL that hit. But NIL specifically inside this conversation, do y'all think that NIL has stretched the distance between the opportunity, the ability of HBCU athletics and PWIs?
I'll say yes. It absolutely it has. I mean, if you look at not even just like the endowments of some of these schools, it absolutely has. But like one point before I even go on to that, I want to about Dion, what he was trying to do as far as like HBCUs. I think it's something we got to remember when it comes to Dion. He took his kids there, and I think that's something that's very important for Dion. And I think like that's a really big in like that means a lot if like you're willing to invest in that and your commitment, make that commitment to the school, and also bring your kids there. So I mean, I don't think he had really bad intentions for Jackson State. I mean, you can't really have bad intentions if you're gonna bring your kid there. Also, I think his kid had a lot to do with some of the decisions for him to maybe move on to a bigger conference to where you get more TV exposure. That's one of his biggest goals.
That's called the Shador right there.
The Shador. I'm gonna go with the Watts. They took that from him though, but they definitely took that from him. But I think that has a lot to do with. And if you look at the trajectory of his son's career, he is projected first round next year. And I don't think that's by mistake. I think the things that Dion have done are actually working out very well. And I think we're gonna do it. We have to keep that in mind, is that he's also like he's trying to take these black kids. There's two that he got 2 kids there too, and even when it comes to like black people, think about like the opportunities he's given the kids that he brought with him to Colorado, and he's helping make a lot of dreams come true. I think he wanted to do good. You know, he got to Jackson State and saw that he might have been a little handicapped and handcuffed in some of the good he wanted to do in the places he wanted to go. And he, moved on. I don't agree with the like what you said about like kicking, talking shit on the way out. I don't agree with that. I think, that's a little dirty work, but it's a breakup, maybe things happen, but I don't agree with the trashing, the school on the way out. You probably have to do that. But I mean, for the sake of your kids and your family, trying to put them in a good position, I can't blame him for that. And his kid probably gonna go first round next year, so you can't even say he was wrong.
Right, right. All right, cool. So I guess let's now pivot. I in some pre-show conversation, I think that we got a really interesting topic, a really interesting segue. It's not even a perfect segue. This is way off from where we was just at. But we're gonna get to it. Had a statement, and I love for y'all to respond to this. Said everything you can say bad about the black church, you can say about the HBCUs. What's your thoughts?
Want to add to that everything good you can say about black churches, you can also say about HBCUs too, just to balance it out.
Well, I ain't
That's
saying who
not as
said it,
fun.
but it sounded like he made an addendum. But
That's not as fun.
G, what you think?
I think yes, and so I get what it's trying to say, but like schools and churches are not the same. They don't serve the same purposes necessarily. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like if you stand on these principles of community and forgiveness and helping thy neighbor and all these Christian principles, the black church is held to a different standard than say a black school, which is there to educate black folks, right? So I don't think it's like an apples to apples type of comparison personally. But I do think it's very true that each institution can be way more impactful to the community than what they currently are today. They both aren't utilizing the bulk of their resources to really feed back the community that's going to feed those institutions in the future, in my opinion.
Can I add something? I think I know. I think what Trey's talking about, if I can interject, I think Trey's talking about not the. I mean, of course, school and church are two different things. They're two different institutions. But I think what Trey's talking about, if you look at the outcome and like the impact and what they have done to the community and a lot of the principles that like come from these institutions, I think that's more what he's speaking to as far as like if you look at pros and cons as far as results. I think a lot of the results are the same as far as like what the church has done and what the school has done to like the community to relationships to even you could go to like crime. I think they're not necessarily like the same effects, but it's all something that's supposed to be good. It's painted as a positive thing, but in the end, the ultimate outcome be negative sometimes. I think that's just the truth for a lot of progressive or like I mean it's not going to be fair, but like a lot of liberal institutions, you see the same. You see a lot of the same thing happen. Is they're painted as this sheep's in wolf clothing. It's a good thing that comes. It's supposed to be this good thing, but it's negative outcomes. And I think that's the comparison we're speaking of.
Gotcha. So Trey, when you said the critiques that you have of the black church are the same as you have for HBCUs, what do you mean
Yeah,
by that?
yeah. John did a good job, like kind of clarifying that a little bit because it was like right after slavery, our literacy rate increased like rapidly. After that, we've always had a thirst for knowledge. Even during slavery, we were making all kinds of patents. We have a natural engineering ability that that needs to be cultivated. So I think when they gave us our HBCUs, which a lot of them were created to educate the mulatto offspring that they had with black women by racist slave masters. It kind of had a
All right, pause.
dual
Let me make sure I
benefit.
understand. You said that the HBCUs were created for the mulatto offspring of the slave master.
Correct. So that way, rather than have them go there do good things for black people, you get your greatest minds, your talented tenth, like the boy was saying, um, and you steer them in a direction where you're able to indoctrinate them, like the same way they did with all the other indigenous people, where they put them in the Catholic schools and they made them learn all things that are basically Western civilization. So our schools were started that way. So they took our natural uh, curiosity and intellectual abilities that we're known for globally, and then they steered it in a direction that didn't support our own interests. So now we get in a situation where we're like every man for himself, and we don't really do anything for the black collective. And we get a few of them that get elevated, and they become gatekeepers, and they get to look at them and say, "Why don't you just be like them?" So that way, most people are followers. So if you get in order for someone to move in the right direction, they have to be worthy of following. And if the only way you're worthy of following is if you assimilate, then you get the other 80% of people to follow the people into assimilation, versus having people that like try to do things for themselves, like Gurley when he started Black Wall Street, and then you burn that down. Then it's kind of like a hidden hand approach that even when the NAACP, like which was started by like the same group of people, like the Rockefellers with Spelman, that was named after his wife, who was a eugenicist. So, I mean, the rabbit hole goes deep, man. So,
Gotcha.
and same with the black church.
Gotcha. So, hey, Black, we have a two-part question for you now. So one, I'd like to hear your response to the initial. Well, not this wasn't even the initial statement. The secondary statement was HBCUs made for mulatto offsprings of the slave master. And then I'd like for you to answer the original question. Oh, my bad. Before you hop in it, I do quick housekeeping. Shout out to Judy Madovin. So you didn't put anything in the super chat. So in general, like as a platform, we do appreciate it. But I will say all super chats, so kind of like we will read your actual comment on the live, and we'll respond to whatever your statement is. Again, we're streaming live currently at the To Be Fair Show and at G-ish Podcast. There is also, hey Black, you gotta also shout out your Cash App, but within the comments, not comments, the description, we have all of our individual panelists. You see our names. You can match it with the Cash Apps. If you would like to just donate and you appreciate what is being said, if you appreciate H Black and that big H on his shirt and his undying, wavering support for Howard, hey, tip him. Throw something in that Cash App. But H Black, starting off again, I'll repeat the question and then we'll get into like the overarching question. Was HBCUs made for mulatto offspring of the slave master?
No. HBCUs were created, to educate freed slaves, so that they can educate themselves. So, like a lot of things that started for, most of like Johnson C. Smith around the corner was Biddle University in 1867. The oldest building, one of the oldest buildings in Charlotte, was built by slaves, and I doubt all of them were mulattoes. So, but if you starting from that point of the late 1800s, most people that benefit or that start are the guinea pig of anything new are the lighter skin, are the fairer skin, are the mulattoes. So yeah, they were some of the first students at a lot of these schools. A lot of them.
How was I wrong then, bro? You just said the mulattoes were the first students, and it was built by white men.
Because it wasn't they didn't sit down. It's like we're building these for mulattoes. It was for free slaves and for free black people, which a lot of the times at that time, the free black people were mulattoes or were lighter skinned. And, just like now we see lighter skinned people still, benefit from a lot of programs or systems and institutions first before everybody is included. We see the first people in our politics, whether it's Adam Clayton Powell to Barack Obama, are lighter skin, or Kamala Harris are lighter skin. They are always kind of the first that make the power structure comfortable with black people. Associating with them is by allowing lighter skinned people in first. So when you're educating black people, a lot of them education is already a privilege. You're coming from an age where wasn't too long ago reading was illegal. So people who had access a lot of times were people of privilege to education, and these were lighter skinned, maybe offspring of different slave masters, maybe people who benefited from their lighter skin through passing or whatever. So you got to kind of put the full thing into context. It wasn't set out just for like these are for mulattoes. It's just like, no, these people are benefiting first because they are in position to benefit first and are opening the doors for all people of color because they are still considered black in those times of the one drop rule or whatever. But yeah, you're gonna have lighter skinned people. Like, we're not just gonna put the biggest, buckets, blackest niggas in school and educate them and read first. Like, first we're gonna get the safer, fairer skinned people in first, and then eventually the colors get darker and darker. And knowing this through researching digital yearbooks, because I have to do this for my job. You see that progression. It was really swift. Like, it wasn't like it was just mulattoes for 50 years. It was like the first 2 to 3 years, and then the word was spread, and then boom, your next class was like all chocolate black people at these schools. Like, we have a school of ourselves. Like, yeah, and those first mulatto students became the first teachers at these schools, because they have to be able to teach their own. So, I mean, you got to put the whole thing in the context. Like, light-skinned people, mulatto people were a lot of the first blacks to do a lot of things, because power structure was comfortable with them doing these things first. So you're not completely wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying like that wasn't, they didn't sit down and decree like these is for mulatto schools. Like, when you got Tuskegee being built and Booker T. Washington, he's half white. A lot of people forget he's half white. So yeah, they are benefiting, through their association through race, but they also need their own places of education, and they want, and they're still considered black, even with their lighter skin. They are facing almost just as much as oppression because they're torn between two races at a time where light skin wasn't as cool. You're a product of rape, you're the product of either privilege and different things. So it wasn't like this badge of honor to be light skinned. So they're still black as well. But a lot of the fair skinned people started shit off. Got W. Du Bois, half white, So I get what you're saying, but the institutions was set in place to educate freed slaves. But if you're a freed slave, you don't necessarily have that conditioning of like, I need to go to college first. It's usually the people who are already free and their offspring and the offspring of white people who've already shown them the privilege benefits of education.
Got you.
Just real quick, if I can push back. So if the people who funded the schools just so happen to have mulatto offspring who just so happened to be the first people who went to those schools, then how can you say that they didn't build the schools for their mulatto kids? If you think they would have had the soft spot in their heart for the black collective, if not for their kids that didn't have any right to education or didn't have institutions for them, they needed institutions. It was like Drake's mama building a school for Drake. It's not like she's trying to do something for black people. She cares about her son. You get what I'm trying to say?
like I get what you're saying, and like I say, it's some truth to it. But some are doing it; they're not doing it just for their kids. A lot of them are doing it for their own name. Like,
Out the goodness of their heart for black people, you think these
oh, they're doing it for
benevolent
their
white
own.
men?
Like I was a general in this war, General Oliver, or Fisk, or I'm a philanthropist. This is a new way for me to be immortalized by having my own school. This is a new way for me to get tax write-offs and tax credit through the government by creating an institution as well. So there's a lot of other reasons, but the main reason was to educate this newly free populace that we have. We need to include them into the workforce. We need to educate them, and we're going to get government funding to do it.
Okay,
I'm a
so
little,
I
I could go back, bro.
gotcha. So I think that y'all at a perfect spot to kind of segue to the next part. And one again, I'm just learning this right now, to be honest.
Man, can I add
When it
one more
comes down
comment
to like that,
for in peace, man? My bad.
but
Man, we talk about like the Rockefellers, and we know his famous quote where he said that he wanted school was not to teach people. He wants a bunch of workers. He don't want a bunch of thinkers. And then those are the same people that funded our HBCUs, like Spelman and Morehouse. And don't you think that there's a connection between that goal and then seeing this Negro class that is educating themselves, and you don't want to get out of hand? So it was like put there intentionally, not out of like any benevolency, just it was put there to serve its purpose to steer us away from empowerment and into the assimilation, the same way they did with the what they call it, with desegregation. Excuse me.
A Black.
What am I responding to? I'm sorry. I
Oh,
was
he
I was
was
reading
he
I was
was
reading I was reading something about the
I'm
freedom.
talking about I'm talking about the intentions. Like it sounds like you're saying the intentions of these white folks was to educate black people, and I'm telling you that it seems more likely that their intention was to control black people and help their
I
kids. It
mean,
wasn't like to help us. Why would they do that?
I mean, so I can't speak on other people's intentions. Like I can only kind of go off what history is saying. Was their purpose behind it? So you got the Freedmen's Bureau that is going around to create uh, these institutions, and their whole mission was to help people to adjust to freedom. Um, am I going to act like they didn't want some type of control? I mean, I feel like any type of education, for the most part, that is government sponsored is going to have some type of control mechanism or indoctrination intertwined in it. That's whether it's white or black schools to control your populace. That starts in our public schools. So, um, yeah, there's definitely a control factor, but education is still a way for you to kind of take whatever somebody else is trying to do and make it into your own, which is what we did. So if it started this way, black people still took it and made it their own as far as education when they were fighting against having white presidents. In the 40s, in the 20s, through the 20s to the 40s, when most of these institutions had white presidents and white boards of directors, they fought against that. So no matter how it was established, we still kind of took it and made it our own to educate black people with black education and black culture, teaching ourselves, learning ourselves, having safe spaces for ourselves. So I don't know if it was like started with like dastardly intent, but I do believe that not all white people are like, dark hearted, and then some of them did, want to teach, want to educate, and there's money involved. You getting federal funding from the government, so money is always going to corrupt. But I would like to believe that there were white people at that time that genuinely wanted to help elevate, this newly freed people.
Man,
yeah.
I think too though, like it's also I think So I think what Trey is saying does have truth to it, but at the same time, it doesn't necessarily mean that's for all HBCUs, like, because all of them didn't necessarily start the same way, and a lot of them start as something and then get somehow taken over by something else over time, right? Like the schools change names multiple times, they change locations oftentimes.
Let me go see if James E. Shepard was mulatto. Hold on, my bad. Keep going.
Nah, but I mean, it's true. I mean, but it makes sense though, because back in those days, that's how it was.
Mhm.
But like, you know, it was still against the law for mulattoes to. It was written in the text like mulattoes. It was against the law for them to be educated and do things too. They were still classified as, you know, a non-white race without rights. So, and that's just the unfortunate part of history, in that if you happen to descend from the master having sex with your mom, at that point, you might have got a little piece of land or something in the will that other folks on the plantation didn't get because you were blood tied to the family, right? That happens all over the place, where the descendants of the master, those light-skinned folks, actually get some resources that they can build on, and then others who are on the plantation don't. So I do think there's some, you know, truth to what Trey is saying, but ultimately, I think all of these colleges do us a disservice in the same way, in that they're not necessarily promoting innovation and creativity and real learning. They're trying to create robots, if you will, or trying to create structured people in society to play these roles for their benefit. So I agree with like a lot of overall points. I just don't think every HBCU fits under the same umbrella.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Johnny, you want to round us off?
I mean, it does kind of it makes sense, like let's say, as far as like the origin, and like I say, I mean, even me, I'm looking at result. I mean, like we we're the most divided at the simultaneously while we're the most educated, and it has to me, there's something, you know, to be said about these institutions. And, you know, that's just, you know, kind of where I'm at. I think it's a results based thing. I don't think you look at the results, they've been beneficial to us.
Gotcha. Okay, all right. So I guess as we segue into it, and it can almost go to the clickbaitable title, where it asks the question: has HBCUs sold us out? But it actually lands closer to where y'all was at, where again, like I said, I didn't really know the mulatto history of like a lot of the early HBCUs. Again, like Central, I can't remember. Damn, that's crazy. I can't remember off the top of my head. I know it's 1913. But that was a little different. So like James Shepard, he would like, it's not a specific mulatto background to that, but there's HBCUs that have a history early within, not early, but within the 1800s, where it almost but makes sense. And it does end up leading us into the idea in the conversation about funding. And I know maybe this was like 2018, somewhere within the Trump administration, and we seen the picture of a lot of HBCU presidents at Trump's in Trump's office. Later, we hear Trump has funded permanently HBCUs inside XYZ, right? In which there was some critique to it, and there was some rejoice to it, depending on where you stood inside the specific space and your thoughts on him, and if this was an idea for a photo op or exploitation, XYZ. So I'll ask the question first. Well, matter of fact, I'll just ask like your general thoughts. And maybe I'll start with Trey, not Trey, but G. Um, because I know you also have a little bit of a perspective on HBCUs and their lack of funding and what that might lend them to maybe do or not do, in the idea or guise of maybe even exploitation for a presidential candidate or in benefit of them and the institution. G.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these HBCUs, man, a lot of their funding, because they don't have the endowments, they got to play nice with who's cutting the checks at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And it's just an unfortunate sort of like I don't want to say like pony show, but it's just like nobody's really trying to support HBCUs in the government. Like nobody's really trying to make sure these institutions can thrive, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And regardless of whether it's Trump or whatever president, they can keep throwing us these crumbs. But the reality is that these HBCUs, the bulk of them, the government ain't coming to save nobody, right? Willis Reed ain't walking through that door, or whatever you could say. Like the unfortunate piece to it all is that a lot of us, we talk about how HBCUs lack funding, but then we don't figure out ways to necessarily change the tide of that, right, in a productive way. Now, what that looks like is we can have that discussion, but like our endowments relative to some of these other schools is just it's laughable in some instances. And so it's like, how do we even get our own HBCU graduates to find ways to funnel in more resources to the schools? You know what I'm saying? So I think that's something to really think about too along the way.
What I guess where you're just at, do you think that that's more of a systemic issue in general, more than just the fact that black people don't want to give back to the HBCUs, but more so the idea that the gross income of out of the first 5 years, let's just go first 5 years of an HBCU student, and that of like a Caucasian graduate of a PWI, might look a little different.
I think, I mean, so like, yeah, first 5 years is one thing, right? I think the way that HBCU alumni or alumnus show support is often through events, things like homecomings, events around homecoming, and that's like how they show their support for the school. And they'll spend significant money for these activities to take place, for the travel, the lodging, the here and there. So if it's systemic, I don't know if it's necessarily.
Do you think that's like comparable to like what a booster or a donor at a PWI can actually give?
Man, I think there are some so like, like a Stephen A. Smith, for example, a Shannon Sharp, for example. These are people who both went to HBCUs. I think that HBCUs have a lot of high value, high wealth graduates across the board, a lot of them, but for whatever reason, haven't figured out ways to leverage that high value and loop it back into the institution. So I feel like it's attainable.
Got you. I guess like continue building, and Johnny, let me get to you in a second. So when you look at like the Shannon Sharps, the Stephen A. Matter of fact, Stephen A. went to Winston-Salem. From what I've seen outwardly, looks like he does like push a lot of like things for HBCUs and even Winston in general, right? But if you was to compare that again, we'll go with a state PWI, UNC Chapel Hill. We'll just go with that, right? Yes, that's state PWI. Where do you think that when it comes down to like an exception or like a higher yield of like people that actually have like the wealth to be able to give endowments, to be able to buy a library, to be able to build that's a fair comparison where, you know, like
Nah, I don't think it's fair because you're talking about a
Thank
school
you.
that's tens of thousands of people going there at a given year versus a school that might have a couple of thousand students in attendance per year. Plus, when you look at UNC, it's not just the school; it's the healthcare system. It's some other things too that go into UNC Chapel Hill, the research and all this other stuff. Like it is a very well-oiled machine in the state of North Carolina. So I don't think anything outside of those power schools, these power conference schools, I don't think any HBCU that I'm aware of can really compare to what these quote unquote power conference schools tend to get access to, given the types of institutions that they are.
Gotcha. Well,
was
yeah,
gonna
I
say,
guess that I was going to me, I guess rounding off the point where I struggle with making that comparison when it comes down to donors, HBCUs and comparison to PWIs because of like those specific points where I think that there's a different structural wealth game that's being played between the two. Johnny, what's your thoughts?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, you
Well,
wanted to
my
get in.
first,
You had a hot take. What you got?
well, nah, it was just a question. My first question when you was talking about like the average, first 5 years, white kids from PWI and black kids from HBCUs. I was gonna ask, what about like black kids from PWI? Do you think within the first 5 years there's much of a income difference between those schools, like between the kids who go to PWI and the kids that go to HBCUs, and why would that be? That was my question. That was one question, and then the other question was just the answer to like what G was saying about like the Power Five schools and like when it comes to sports and other things. Like when it comes to sports, a lot of even PWIs are having trouble competing with the funding that these SEC schools and ACC schools are getting from a lot of their TV contracts, where they're looking at like 500 million a year being split between the SEC, and a lot of that's not. It's very hard, to compete when you're getting that kind of money, even for like a Central Michigan or a small PWI. Even a lot of those schools are struggling to compete when it comes to this new world of funding and the transfer portal in NIL. It's not just HBCUs that are struggling; it's a lot of schools.
Gotcha.
So that first question was rhetorical, right?
Maybe
That first
I
question.
was going to kind of reframe it and then ask the panel.
Oh, okay, sure.
Johnny, let me know if this is a fair representation of what you asked. Do you think that black schools are producing the same quality candidates into the job market as PWIs?
Yeah, that's basically it.
Okay, fellas, what y'all think?
Yeah, definitely. I want to talk about some other stuff, but I'll answer that question. So, 50% of black teachers come from HBCUs. 70% of black dentists come from HBCUs. Um, the black Howard produces more black doctors and lawyers than any college, PWI or HBCUs. You know,
Someone said that NCCU's law school is the top in North Carolina, but my bad. Keep going.
no, it is in North Carolina. I was talking about in the nation.
Oh no, for sure. No,
Uh-oh.
I was going along with what you were saying.
Yeah, so it's like without HBCUs, like we would to compete in the job market, like they basically are the market for like a lot of industries, like so to say that, I mean the numbers are already there about what's produced. I mean, if you even name our big names just for as far as culture creators, you got Oprah, Spike Lee, MLK Jr., Booker T. Washington, Thurgood Marshall, like some of the biggest, icons, change makers in our culture, came through HBCUs. So it's a necessary thing. On the financial side, we were speaking on. I know we had mentioned Trump earlier. What Trump did, he just re-signed a renewed, basically, funding, which is only $250 million a year. That's supposed to be spread out among all HBCUs. So, people are only getting a fraction of that. But
Mhm.
if you take one PWI, University of Texas, for instance, their endowment is $31.9 billion. So it's like, numbers wise, we it just can't compare. You can take Stephen A. Smith, one of the most successful HBCU graduates. I think he has the highest ESPN contract at $10 million a year. Even if he gave his whole salary, that's not scratching, the endowments of these major schools. HBCUs only enroll 10% of the black population. Every black person would have to be have $1 million a year to even still come close to scratching the surface of 2 or 3 PWIs. So, like, what Drake say, number wise, I'm out of here. It's like, we just can't really compare. We don't have the student body population. John C. Smith, number one private school in the state, one of them, our student body just went over 700.
God,
700. Like, so it's like you comparing that to student bodies of 17,000 and stuff like that. It's just not comparison. Like we'd all have to be making well over 6 figures and be donating 30% of our salaries to help fund these HBCUs, and we're just not doing that. We have successful people and stories, but we also know people who are still, working under market rate and who are not making 6 figures yet, and they are graduated, they're smart, they are intelligent, and it's not because they went to an HBCU or PWI, it's because they live in America. And like, you have PWIs who are getting endowments and grants from oil companies, from major figures. And we kind of we scrapping. We get a little check here from Wells Fargo every now and then. Wells Fargo gives John C. Smith like 2-3 million a year, and they give UNC Charlotte like 40 million. And like the disparity is just crazy numbers wise, like how much we lack. So the boosters, we can, like I say, we can all give back to our institutions. That's definitely going to help, but it's not comparing to these endowments. Like, they are getting flooded with money, man.
Straight up.
Yeah.
Can I make a clarifying point too? Because that's like, we talk about giving back. A lot of us will graduate, will infiltrate corporate America, and then we don't advocate to bring what that those organizations to our campuses, for example. So like, a lot of us will find success in whatever the field is and reach even a level where you have significant influence, but then that same company isn't recruiting at your school, for example. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's little things like this can be changed, because that's where a lot of the money does come from, more of like those bigger corporate entities or those private equity sort of firms, things like that, where you can get those types of volumes of money. It's not just going to be from the individual like pockets. It's more about how these individuals infiltrate these other powerful institutions and then don't use that influence to redirect some of those funds back to the HBCUs.
And can I make a clarifying point? Because like my question, I wasn't trying to insinuate that PWIs are having better candidates, but my only point was, like, with the candidates that are coming out of, I'm gonna round it back because it was a bad question. I see Quinn over there. I see Quinn
Oh
over
no,
there.
I'm just asking questions that y'all
I'm
ask.
round it back, and I'm gonna say, like, so there is the HBCUs. There's a lot of success. There's a lot of stuff. Candidates. You said the doctors. There's lawyers, politicians. G's talking about people working up the corporate infrastructure that have all come from these same institutions. Just like if you look at, the PWI, the same way they get a lot of that funding is through the same, people work their way up. It's on a larger scale, but what do you think we would need to do, or what would happen in order for us to maybe play that game a little better as far as bringing in the corporations, or maybe even getting black people that maybe not even went to HBCUs to start donating to some of these endowments if they're going to be beneficial for for the betterment of black people at large. I think the name of the game is, it's a capitalism game. It's like, how can we maybe help some of these endowments bring in more money? Because if you look at, black people, we spend a lot of money. There's a lot of money that goes out of our communities, and it's like, how do we, keep that back within our community, and what can we do?
That, man, this sounds kind of more like the whole Weezer's our own worst enemy type of thing. Because if
Are we
we all
not, though,
agree that
Trey? Are we not?
no, we're not our own worst enemies. Did we enslave ourselves? Did we Jim Crow ourselves? Did we burn down our own towns and lynch ourselves too? Are
Have
we
we
Are we running?
self-sabotaged? Have we
Are we
have
running
have
the
we have
prison
we held
systems?
ourselves accountable for a
So,
lot of the
so when you,
things that we've
but
gone on? I
when
mean,
you
there's
say
a
we're
lot
our
of
worst
stuff you
enemies,
can
that
add.
you're saying we're worse than the KKK, and you blaming yourself for your own situation that was put in on other people, and
Hey, Trey, if you don't
you're
accomplish something, Trey, if you don't accomplish something, whose fault is it? Is it them or is it you? You
you're
hold yourself
shielding our
accountable.
enemy from
You
blame by
hold.
blaming yourself.
No,
It's
I'm
like if
trying
I,
to. I'm
you
trying
sound
to.
like an
I'm trying
abusive
to.
ex-wife, bro. It's like he only
Okay,
beat me
Trey.
because
Trey. Okay.
he only beat me because I said something wrong. That's why he beat me. Like,
But if
bro,
that, but Trey, but
that's a
Trey, but
victim
Trey,
mentality, bro.
but Trey, if like I ain't even gonna make it personal, but if you knew somebody in that situation, wouldn't you tell that person to leave? And wouldn't you like put the onus on that person to put themselves in a better situation? If you didn't accomplish something, if I don't accomplish something, do I turn around and blame
Leave and
everybody
do
else, or
what?
do I
Leave and
look
go
at
where?
myself and say I need to be better? Like
Leave and
that's
go where? Because it's almost like you're arguing that you said something about quality of the candidate. Quality of the candidate is not the main indicator of their income. It's because of our structure of our economy under this white supremacist system. Like that's why we need reparations. We need money because right now 80% of the wealth is locked into white society. So it's locked in. And it's been that way because of slavery and then the corporations they built and the wealth that they got off of our free labor. These universities were funded by slavery and they were built with free labor from slaves. Like the Harvard endowment, the Yale endowment, all these endowments, they didn't come from outworking us or doing all these things that you said we need to do. They came by taking and then not, allowing themselves to just play by the game. This whole thing, playing the game, you cannot play the game out of white supremacy. You have to demand equal treatment. And it's
and you
impossible.
think they
It's
okay, so what's the I mean? Like if we gonna go there, then are they gonna give it to us?
No, we need to demand it. We don't need to vote for anybody else unless they're talking about reparations, ending qualified immunity, or race hate crime bill. We don't need to vote for abortion and LGBT because it seems like right now we're perfectly content in giving up our vote, and our power, and our voice for issues that don't help us.
Like we,
Um,
we went left, but
as y'all are still left, I got a quick question before we get back on back for Trey. So given what you just said, is white supremacy or Africans the biggest threat for black people? I'm just trying to understand like this FBA thing that I keep hearing y'all say. Some of y'all just be like Africans are the worst threat, and then you just said white people and white supremacy was. Can I get
That's
a clarifying answer really quickly?
that's like asking what's the bigger threat, nuclear weapons or the white supremacists who own the nuclear weapons. Like
Oh, my bad. Say this again. Let me hear where you're going.
that's like
that's
saying what's the
hilarious.
bigger threat, a nuclear weapon or the white supremacists pushing the button on the nuclear weapon? Because the white supremacists
If I'm
will
beside that white man, I'd give me that. Like if I'm beside the white man pushing the
God
button,
damn.
then you'd be right where you want to be
But like you
in the
okay.
big house.
All right. Again, just some comic relief if you may. But we did get close enough to
call me a house, by
where I
the way.
kind of wanted to go to in the conversation. A Black, you said that Johnson C. Smith, you said it's one of the bigger private schools in North Carolina. I want to make sure
I was saying it's ranked as one of the best private schools.
best private schools. Okay, all right.
Is
So
it?
it's ranked as one of the best private schools. So
What's the
I'll go
tuition
to
on that
alley-oop. I
motherfucker?
understand that there's a critique of public versus private HBCUs. So I'll use this as the alley-oop. And again, allow the floor for the conversation. Trey, we'll start off with you.
But my bad, I was looking up the Howard. You said the best school, like private schools in the nation, or the best?
That's not what I.
Oh, my
No,
bad, my bad,
I
my
don't
bad.
think that he said that about Howard either. He was talking about he works at Johnson C. Smith,
We're talking about
and he
Smith,
said that
North Carolina.
in North Carolina is one of the best private schools. But again, critiques public versus private when it comes down to HBCUs. I've heard words like BOULE get thrown out. I don't know, Trey. What you think?
I mean, it goes back to the control thing. At the end of the day, if we don't have the funding, because 80% of the wealth is locked in the white society. Black wealth is trending to zero, I think, in like 40 years, and we don't advocate for ourselves to get these funds. Instead, we vote fund for non-black issues, and I'll tie that back into the BOULE, because the BOULE, again, those are the gatekeepers who they have like this. Like LeBron's a part of this, so it's like Oprah, like every super rich black person is in this, and then they select who gets to be elevated into that position, and then they are kind of like
what role does say like a Howard play inside this scenario?
I know Howard is a lot of these BOULE folks are affiliated with them. I can't tell you this is a lot of specifics, but it goes in the whole like the Greek organizations, and then I think Sigma Pi Phi, which is the actual BOULE organization, that's not one of these the so-called Divine Diamonds.
That's where Diddy learned to party.
Right, Diddy in the BOULE.
When you say BOULE,
you also said that Sigma. To my like the within the Divine Nine, you said that is the founders of the BOULE.
No, I mean the founders of the BOULE were part of the Divine Nine, but Sig Pi Phi is not one of the Divine Nine college fraternities. I think
it's not. Okay,
that's like after you like become
whatever that one is. But yeah. Okay, all right, gotcha.
When you say BOULE, just like for our viewers, could you explain what you mean by the BOULE?
It's called Sigma Pi Phi, and it goes back to like Prince Hall Freemasonry. From what I've seen, people that research and they share the books and the founding and everything. And basically, it started out with it goes back to the paper bag test. We had the mulatto folks, and then basically the talented 10, where they thought that the top 10% of educated black people should be the ones to lead the other 90%. So that sounds like a gatekeeper mentality. So better than empowering the other 90%, they're kind of like a barrier from us, I guess. Like J. Edgar Hoover said when the biggest threat to America was a black messiah. The BOULE has no interest in like empowering black people to be a threat. They dare to get what they can for themselves and like forget the collective. And
and I guess so. As you explain this, so making sure I understand. So do you believe that HBCUs explicit and probably like specifically more private, like the Morehouses and of those sort, produce more elitist blacks than a PW like PWIs?
Definitely, I would. There's a book called Our Kind of People that goes into detail about this. It's like the Jack and Jill organization. Like it goes into founding all these different organizations, traces back to like their origins, which was like the elitist black people that didn't really like even during Northern migration, there were people there that didn't want the other black people to come. Like in DC, there were black people that didn't want integration they didn't want to. They were against segregation or desegregation because they didn't want the poor black folks they didn't want to be around them type of deal. Like there's always been a class of black people that like thumb their noses and look down on the collective. And everything they can get, they wanted it for themselves, like look out for themselves type of deal. And I think HBCUs kind of teach assimilation and teach you how to be a part of these groups. So do all institutions. I can't even put it on HBCUs in general, but there's always been, even when you look at Martin Luther King, I don't think he was BOULE, he was Alpha though. but Jesse Jackson was. And look at your Jesse Jackson compared to your Martin Luther King, and especially Malcolm X, because he wasn't even in the Greek fraternity. And it's in Huey Newton. Basically, everyone that got things done for us as a black people, they were not BOULE. They weren't the Greek folks.
Okay, all right. So it sounds like you have two different separate conversations that maybe we can grow legs on eventually. So you have explicitly like a Divine Nine like beef also. But like going to where you were just at, I love panel. What do y'all think?
I don't want to call it a beef though. Shout out to
So
them.
Or critique? My bad, critique.
when I was the BOULE to me and the talented to the BOULE was always we gotta specify the black BOULE because the BOULE is originally a white organization, but
Sigma Pi Phi.
the talented TIFF to promote empowerment. It was like we only a small percentage of people that are having this access to knowledge that are getting educated. It wasn't about gatekeeping. It was about going out into rural communities, making sure that we are taking it back. We're going back teaching in our own communities, creating business in our own communities, and we are being a safe space for each other to exchange information and ideas. So going to Howard, we always say that it's two Howards. There is an elitist side, and that side usually derives from students who come from white communities, who come from suburbia, who were pretty much entrenched into white supremacy, assimilated, and a lot of times Howard coming to HBCU is their first black experience, and so a lot of times they bring a lot of those white structures and white ideals to the school, creating these organizations. There is a lot of gatekeeping. There is a lot of replicating, white organizations and institutions. And then you have the other side of Howard, very Afrocentric, very radical, very against that. And these sides are always clashing. Even today, even when I was there. So when we graduate, we represent the school as a whole, and support it as a whole. But when you're there, it's definitely a distinct two sides of the elitist black person who is only out for themselves, and that black person who might be first generation, who might have struggled to got there, who the first person to ever go to a top Ivy League black school. So that contrast is definitely there. But
Hey, Black, can I ask you something?
okay.
Like, cause me and Trey have had this conversation when it comes to like, when we talk about a talented TIFF and like gatekeeping and that being like, the trickle. It sounds like trickle down economics. They gonna give them this, and then they're supposed to come and gatekeep, or they're supposed to come and like, be the saviors for the other 90%. That sound in theory that sounds good, but like what we know about trickle down economics, it's very easy to control that 10% versus trying to control that 90%. And what my question would be, and me and Trey talk about, like, until we hold that 10% accountable, the other 90% is going to always be kind of, left out in the wilderness. And you gave a specific example of that, like it what happened at your school. And I want to ask, like, how you said it's two Howards. How does each Howard hold the other Howard accountable when it comes to issues, or when it comes to like when you leave campus and it's amongst alumni? How does that work when it like if we gonna focus it down to just Howard University? How do the two Howards hold each other accountable?
Well, for one, like I say, you coming from two different spheres of the spectrum of black people. So you learn from each other. You learn from the black elitists. You learn from the black hood person, and you kind of pick up the both sides. The motto at Howard is leadership for the global community. So they instill in you from your freshman year is that we're going to pour all of this into you for you to go back to your community and give everything we gave to them, so that everybody is essentially a Howard student. So it's never about gatekeeping. It's like we create a black dentist, you're supposed to go back to your small town and create your own firm, your own lawyer
But
firm, your own
let me
doctor.
ask.
The alumni aspect is they always pushing to give back. Like I gave back maybe like $1,200 this year, not in full, but through little mini campaigns that they have, and then you can kind of log in and kind of see how much you donate. I'm like, oh shit, I gave back $1,200 to my school this year. You know, I didn't realize it was that much, but so we have like one of the highest return rates as far as alumni giving back, and that's reflective of the education that you get. When you're made a doctor, when you're made a lawyer, when you are put in position in your respective field, you feel more proud to give back because you feel like your education is paid off. So a lot of times we don't talk about at our HBCUs. A lot of people are not using their degrees. They're not really fully benefited from their education, so they don't really feel like giving back.
Let me.
Guys,
Okay.
quick,
Okay. Can I?
before y'all go really quickly, just housekeeping. So at the 2 hour mark, we will be opening up the lines for call-ins. But we'd love for y'all to answer the two prompted questions, and give y'all opinions and let us know if you agree, disagree, what we got right and what we got wrong. Johnny Trey.
Can I give a specific, maybe not, but like when it comes to like the two Howards, and like I'll go to like this example maybe, and I just want to see maybe kind of what your thoughts are on it. But like before Kamala Harris got into the presidency, she had a track record of like arresting and over penalizing like black folks out there in California. And like when she would come, like, or a person like that, not even her, but like, and that's something we could all probably agree not the best, for the community. It's probably not solving any issues. It's probably just creating a lot of damage. And like how would something like that be addressed, or how should we gonna broaden the topic? How should black people address those type of people within our community if they're going to be part of community, or we're trying to have this united community? How do we hold the 10% accountable as the 90% who might not necessarily have the resources, or you know have the ability to get our voice heard like that?
That's a good
Yeah,
question.
I mean, I definitely hear you. It's like I don't really have to answer how we hold it accountable. Like I know, like if we're talking about Kamala, is she she's nice to claim. She's nice to claim, but then at the same time, she gets like a lot of pushback. From her time at Howard, from people like maybe not knowing her as much when she was there, for her ancestry of maybe not fully being a black. You see both sides of that, but then you see she's an AKA as well, and you get you get a lot of blind support too because of her affiliations. Like she went here, she's an AKA, she did this, and like we just want to support her just because she's our sister. But don't get it twisted. It's a lot of people that went to Howard that don't support her, that didn't vote for her, that are against her politics, that called out all of her legislation when she was in Cali and she was on the super cop road. That don't like that she's married to a white man and don't think that she's going to do anything for black people because of that. So like when I say it's two sides, like it's constant, almost infighting, but they don't really promote it to the world. Like we're not gonna like what's the word, fight in front of company, you know what I mean? But we always hold it accountable. I don't know if Q knows, I run another page called Vintage Howard Youth. It has
Yeah,
a large following, maybe about
the apparel.
14,000, all organic Howard people. And when I make posts, man, it's literally arguments all the time between students, alumni, on Kamala, on Joe Biden being a commencement speaker. Like, so it's never one side. We're always holding each other accountable. Um, I think what happens is, money comes into play, where money and funding is coming from. Clout comes into play. Somebody being famous and and having name association, but we don't ever always agree, for sure.
Hey, Black. So, all right. I guess clarification. So, Black is Gold is your apparel
Yes.
company. vintage Howard is more so like
Vintage Howard is a line basically
okay.
of Black and Gold. So Black and Gold is my company for just general apparel, and Vintage Howard is just one line from it. And you know,
Okay.
it started by recreating a lot of vintage brands and vintage things. We have, we have a new logo like a lot of HBCUs. They got new branding, new logos, but for the 70s, the 80s, the 60s, they all had one logo and one image, and they still want those apparel. So I started making clothes for that, doing like a lot of research, finding, vintage footage, photos, videos, kind of curating a page, dedicated firstly to Howard and then just kind of HBCUs in general.
Okay, gotcha.
What John was saying that how do they hold each other accountable? It seems like they just use the 90% as their whipping boy and hold the 90% accountable. And then when it turns to the 10% of like people like Kamala Harris and people like Barack Obama, who did more for LGBTQ than he did for Black people, even though he only got there off of our vote, it seems like we make excuses for them while we point the finger again at the 90%. And it's back to this whole fallacy of Black faces in high places. Even if they say they're not going to do anything for Black people, you said it's nice to claim, but why would it be nice to claim a person who said out her own mouth she would never do anything that's just going to benefit Black people, while she does things that just benefit other people?
In this instance, I agree with you. I'm saying that's a lot of their justification, for claiming, because there's a lot of what I say Europeanized Black people, corporate Black people. It's different kinds of Black people, and I get called all type of names and coons and different stuff, for having pushback against Kamala. I'm a hater, I'm this, I'm that. So I totally agree. It's just that all Black people are not for Black people. All skin folk are not, your kinfolk. And it's like, whether it's Howard, whether it's Morehouse, wherever, it's just always Black people that are kind of justifying, are only seeing one side of the coin. Oh, that's the first Black woman vice president. We shouldn't hate on her. We shouldn't challenge her. It's not hating. It's like, it's
Right.
it's not hating. It's like calling out the truth. It's like, all right, what is she gonna do for us, or why she gotta do something? For a lot of people, her winning is enough. That's a lot of Black people getting in position. That's them doing enough, or they had to work so hard to get there. They don't owe us any obligation, But then you see them kind of helping other marginalized groups with no problem. But when it comes to Black people, they can't. Her famous quote: "She can't just do nothing for Black people." Like, I posted that on my Howard page, and I got a lot of pushback. People saying they're gonna unfollow me and everything, but I don't care. Like, I'm gonna play both sides. I also made like $40,000 selling her T-shirts. Like, so it just shows you like that, especially when it comes to politics, that Black people are not one track. That's for sure.
We're not politically sophisticated. Would you also agree that we will not be able to move forward and advance as Black people until we hold the gatekeepers accountable? Because I think as we're getting lower and descending into like less and less wealth and other groups are being put upon us, the seat's going to get kind of hot. And every revolution starts with going after the gatekeeper, because
what's the gatekeep, you think?
When you have a Kamala Harris, who we put all our votes on to put her up there, and then when she's in a position to do something for us, she's occupying that position without being for us. And then we allow them to select people who aren't going to be for us, and we all galvanize behind them. And when they don't do anything for us, there's never any consequence for that.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's Kamala, whether it's Hillary, people do that with Democrats.
But when it's a Black person, though, it hits different, though. When it's like a Barack Obama, or even like these executives like Diddy that's exploiting other Black people.
Yeah, but we know our culture. As soon as you call them out, the key phrase is "you a hater," or "you a crab," or it's you one of your own. It's like you get chastised for trying to hold somebody accountable these days. Like, I made a comment about 50 Cent, you know, he got a movie studio, and I just pointed out that, you know, most of his content, even though I watch every episode, is about drug dealing. And like niggas is dragging me. And I'm just like, oh yeah, all his shows are about drug dealing. His most popular shows, like the Power series, the BMF, like the shows that we love, they're all about drug dealing. And I was like, yay, you about to make more drug dealing shows.
Right.
And instead of when I was pointing out that truth, oh, you doing this to your own black person and this, that. So it's like black people don't want to be held accountable, especially when they are deemed as successful. You know, you can't. It's hard to hold them accountable.
Trey, I know you wanna hop in, but so I'll ask this, and it kind of stays where we're at. We were speaking about the BOULE. We were speaking about Divine Nine. We was on Kamala Harris, in which AKA, and I'll ask this question. This lens to go to where Trey was at earlier. Divine Nine, is it more pageantry or impact?
I mean, it serves its purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It always blew my mind how, as Black people, we embrace the filthy culture of like Greeks. Like we know about the disgusting things they did, like especially like with children, and all the dress wearing, and basically everything that we have to do, all these humiliation rituals and stuff like that. It's all the stuff is we know Greek for. If you look at the art on the Greek wall, like the Greek art, it's all nudity, discussing this like weird sexual acts. And then for
quickly,
us,
as you're going, when you say humiliation rituals, what are some of the humiliation rituals you're referring to that Black people be doing?
like when you see the little baby getting hugged from behind on the boat. Did y'all see that picture? That little baby, it was a couple white French guys that were the executives, and then one was hugging him from behind, and one was hugging him from the front side, sandwiching him. And then like how Chappelle's always talking about being on the boat, Chappelle's always talking about wearing the dress and having to play the gay characters and things like that. And then like there's like a butt brokenness that comes with growing in Hollywood. That's why you see your Martin Lawrences in the street, having episodes and Chappelle going to Africa to get away and in the deal. It's
and you
all
think that's based out of like some history in Greek?
definitely. Boule literally means messenger to the king, and it was a group of people that they would put out to run different provinces. And we have a Greek culture, which is white culture, and we know how what Alexander the Great and all them did to Africa. So we've been at war with these people for eons. And then now we're adopting their culture, and we're using an organization of our most elite that's named Messenger to the King, and the king being a Greek white guy. And it's like, it's so open. Like even their logo is a sphinx. That's when the sphinx, the story where they had to give the riddle like who walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs in the afternoon, and 3 at night, and it's a person in life. And then they end up solving the riddle, and the Sphinx goes away. The Sphinx is a gatekeeper, like the literal logo. And then she has her hand on a urn. And LeBron James has that Boule tattoo on his chest.
Okay, all right. So I guess just to try and resay what you're saying. So in general, if I was to condense it, you believe that Divine Nine is appropriating, disgusting white culture.
Exactly. Even to call it divine is kind of sacrilegious because there's nothing divine about Greek culture.
All right, fellas.
I'm not Divine Nine, and honestly, when I was an undergrad, I think I probably had said a lot of the things Trey was saying. I think as I've gotten older, I've seen a lot of benefit, outside of crossing and the hazing and actually becoming a part of it. I think down the line, I see more benefit as far as the networking. I know it sounds so cliche, but I've seen it in action. Just knowing people around the world. Having friends, having brothers, if it's a fraternity. I see the benefit in all of that. My dad is an Omega, is a Q dog. I've been to a few events, and like I say, I don't see anything now dark or dastardly about the organization. It's just they have a good time, they commune, um, they they share their money. They have fun. They have funds where with their dues that they help each other. They help the community with. So I do see some benefits of it now that I'm older. I think in undergrad, I didn't. I didn't like the hazing aspect. I thought a lot of the things that they would do for you to become a part of the organization went against a lot of their tenets. And maybe that's just being an undergrad or being young. I see a lot of people would have personal vendettas against people trying to join, and take it out a lot more. Crazy stories I've known from my roommates who was crossing alpha at the time. Um, so, like I say, I think it's one of those things of what you make it. I know people that it's their whole identity. They walk around with the colors of like a Power Ranger every day. Who they are, what they're about. And then there's some people that are real low key about it. And you would never know that they're a part of this organization. So I think it's just one of those things that what you make it. Does Greek life and Greek organizations, if you want to go back to ancient Greek and talk about all of that, we can do that with a lot of things in our culture, in American culture, as far as like talking about the origins of things. But I always kind of like look at things of what they evolved into, what we made it into. As Black people, we replicated a lot of white organizations because we couldn't be a part of it. We were excluded from a lot of things. And so to have similar experiences, we created these organizations, these safe spaces to build brotherhood or sisterhood in our communities. And so, like I say, I see the good in it as well. I think it's kind of what you make it. Some people can go overboard. It's different in different schools for sure. But I think overall, like it can be another tool for our community to do good, no matter its origins.
G, what you think?
And I find it to be so I find it to be more divisive than unifying personally. To A Black's point, right? Like I do think if you join one of these organizations, there are some benefits when it comes to networking and so forth, right? But if it's about Black people, then you should look out for Black people, not just people in the organization, so to speak. And I feel like oftentimes these organizations they somewhat get put on a pedestal by the community in a way where it's to me it's more pageant like whatever that word is than impact from my perspective. Not saying they don't do anything in the community, but I think that given how many people of influence are a part of these organizations, I just see that they tend to look out for each other in a smaller group than looking out for the masses as a whole, in my personal opinion. And another thing I wanted to just speak on is like, just as a whole, this is like my beef with, like, if HBCUs have they sold us out, like, what's the cost of tuition at Johnson C. Smith ballpark? I'm just curious.
A semester, I honestly don't know. I don't want to get the wrong answer, so let me look it up real quick. Because that's not my department.
Because, and I asked that question because it's like when you look at
I do know over half are on scholarship, so we're not getting a lot of money from it.
When you look at the Black community as a whole, we are as a whole known for having some of the lowest amount of income and wealth relative to other demographics. And I find that our HBCUs are way too selective. One, like it becomes a game of like, oh, we're only going to accept like these quote unquote top notch talents, when in reality, these HBCUs need to open up their doors to more than just quote unquote top notch talent coming out of high school, because that's like really what it's there for. It's a breeding ground for young folks to develop, not just an opportunity for an institution to hold their flag up and talk about how high their freshman incoming class GPA and test scores were. You see what I'm saying? So I think the selectivity is way too selective today, and the cost for access to the schools, it is not really a reflection of the community as a whole. So it's like if they're going to be HBCUs, then let's make them more available for Black folks and make them more affordable.
All right, so I guess
tuition.
so
I got the
two
numbers.
things. Oh, go ahead, Ava.
Oh yeah, so the tuition is about $19,000 a year for John C. Smith in this area, compared to Queen's University, it's about $40,000 a year, and Wingate University is another $40,000. So yeah, it's still relatively cheap compared to most schools in the surrounding area. 20% are athletes, 50% of the students are on full scholarship, and like 15 to 10% are international students, so from the Caribbean and from Africa.
That's interesting.
We can add like two little quick facts real quick.
Okay.
Like Howard, you talk about them being HBCUs being sellouts. Like Howard gave Biden, the author of the crime bill, an honorary degree last year, and then Morehouse will be voting Thursday whether they should give him a degree or not. So it seems like to play nice, they just do boys for the Democratic Party more often than not. Those are.
I mean, you get no argument from me there. Both schools have protested and boycotted Morehouse and Howard during both of those things. People walked out during Biden's commencement speech at Howard. So it's really kind of, like I said.
Didn't Howard's graduation get canceled? Actually, didn't they?
That was one school, the School of Nursing. Yeah,
it wasn't the official commit. I thought Biden was speaking at Morehouse, so this nigga making his rounds. He going Howard, Morehouse. He's speaking at all these.
Yeah, he ain't speaking at Howard this year. He spoke at Howard, I want to say last year or the year before.
2023.
And it was protests. Morehouse did a big town hall against their president there, and gave reasons about his support of Israel.
Right, exactly. They boycotted or they protested because of Israel, not Black issues. So that goes more to their sellout roots. Like, because
I was still going. That was just one of the things, but that they were mentioning. They mentioned all the way back to the crime bill. Like they had a whole little thing on him, but it's a lot of times it's the upper administration, these older people who still see these figures as like beneficial, to the cachet of the school. Like we having the president of the United States at our school, they're not thinking about it. So the students a lot of times are not really with the shits. They're fighting against these things, and they just kind of got to end up rolling with it in some instances. But we see it at white schools with them walking out on Jerry Seinfeld. Like the students don't always get to control who the commencement speaker is, and but they definitely protest.
So do you think they're losing their legitimacy? Oh my God. I said, do you think they're losing their legitimacy? Like when my parents' era, everybody was Greek. this area, you start to see more and more people talk about BOULE, and they talk about the problems with our HBCU. And our parents' generation, they were more like, you could say nothing wrong about it. Like, and then especially, I had a friend who started a chapter at another school, and they're all like, literally, his whole line turned LGBTQ. He didn't even know that at the time, and that was like my dad's generation. That was unheard of. So nothing against that community, but I'm just saying things are changing.
Yeah, I mean, things are changing. I've seen that at my own HBCU with Sigma line actually. It's basically kind of become like a low key. Can we say gay on here? But like a.
I feel like it's always, well, at least at Central, that was one of the tropes of
Sigmas.
I guess the Sigmas, but I don't know. I guess like depending on the HBCU, because I guess like the Sigmas at A&T are like a different like version of men that kind of cross through. I don't know. So let me ask. Well, no, I actually want to double back to G really quickly. I think it was 2 points that you made. So one was the idea of selectivity. So you believe that HBCUs are too selective. Well, I guess like just to make sure I clarify, then I'll give like a statement after that.
Yeah, I think so. Like, so my experience going to college, I had never been to Winston-Salem State. I just was like, let me apply to a school because I didn't have a 3.0 graduating from high school, didn't have any type of 4-digit SAT score. Shit was very, very average at best, if not slightly below. So if that same individual applied to Winston today, I don't think they would get in.
Oh, okay.
And so when I say,
so you're talking about like the updated standard of what they're trying to do.
Yeah, more. That's what I mean by more selective
gotcha.
In terms of acceptance rates, the types of candidates they're willing to accept on campuses. Like there's in that world of higher education, there's a certain prestige with how selective you are with your acceptance rates and the type of candidates you accept and raising your profile and playing that type of game. And I think, unfortunately, HBCUs are too caught up in playing these types of games because it's closing doors for individuals who.
But you're saying that you believe that this is like a newer thing.
It's a trending thing. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Benedict, my bad. What's up?
So I
Benedict is Benedict.
Yeah, they'll let you in with a GED.
Yeah.
No, Benedict is Benedict.
I just want to clarify because again, I'm not as abreast to where like the trend of HBCUs are, but I was going to kind of harken back to just like what it was when I got in there, where like I can tell you now, if I went unweighted GPA, I was at like a 1.8. Like I was not like one of these people that really cared about grades in high school. Again, luckily enough, I could take tests really well, and so I quote unquote, I guess I had a 4-digit SAT score, right? But for me, I know that I looked at HBCUs as a space where like late bloomers could actually go to and kind of figure some things out through the course of like 4 or 5 years. And I looked at it as like that was like whether you went like the community college route or you was actually able to get into the school, it had a, you know what I mean, for lack of better terms, like a low enough bar of entry to where you could get some of those kids that was, you know what I mean, like maybe not as focused in high school, but it gave them a chance to actually get their foot inside like an institution, be surrounded around like-minded people and actually succeed, or you know,
and be in a nurturing environment, right? Like
right.
To me, that's the uniqueness as a Black, especially a young Black male, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know what it's like being in school and not getting my fair shake at a public school and feeling like I'm getting treated different because I'm the Black kid in the situation. You see what I'm saying? And when you on an HBCU campus, at least my experience at Winston, it is a very warm, familial type of vibe on the campus. And the way that your professors are, I don't want to say looking out, but willing to work with you was something that I found very like enjoyable. Like that was a like something I would shout out about Winston all day. Like people, for the most part, the professors that I had, they weren't trying, like, you know how some professors, they just want to see who fails at the end of the semester. They just want to see like, man, my shit's so tough. My class is the hardest class on campus. Let's see who passes. I felt like the overwhelming majority of my professors at Winston were the opposite. They were trying to put you in position to be successful. And that to me is a huge value of a HBCU for young Black folks. And we need to make more space for that, as much space for that as possible. I don't think your 1.8 would get you into Central today, bro, even with the test score. I don't think so.
I'm tapped out. So I wanted to ask that in clarification to in which you kind of clarified. And I guess to the point of like your professors making sure that they look out for you. Like my advisor, truthfully, somehow he knew my son's mother. Maybe they went to school together. He was a graduate of West Charlotte. And my first job out of college, you know, him knowing that I had a kid in college, he got me set up at John C. Smith, and that was literally my first job out of college. I don't even know if they still got the place over there at John C. Smith, but it was the Applied Research Institute of Technology or some shit like that. That I worked at there, but it was literally off of just, you know, him kind of recommending me, in which that is something that I did feel at HBCU, that there was like a concerted effort of community. But all right, so the last thing I wanted to hit really quickly before we kind of switch gears a little bit. So next part you said was cost, and I know you asked A Black about, you know, like the rate of like tuition today at John C. Smith, in which like he gave the rate and then he gave what the surrounding areas is. Do you think that the rise in comparative tuition is pretty much nothing more than just the adjustment for inflation?
No, it's way more than inflation. It's a business. It's higher education is a business. Some of these institutions are privately funded at that. They get a fraction of their money from federal or state funding or whatever the case. And even the state funded institutions, like they're state funded, and the state is also using the revenues that these schools make. So when you talk about these power conference schools like the University of South Carolina, that's a state school, but that state is making a lot of money because of this school's relationship with the University of South Carolina. And this is where I say the whole thing is a crock of shit, in that this is higher education in general. The reason why stuff costs is because of the stadium that the football team plays in, the arena the basketball team plays in, the amount of restaurants and craziness in the student center and video game. Like it's a bunch of stuff on campus that have nothing to do with school, bro. And when I went to school in Amsterdam, like that's when my eyes like lit up and was like, wait, there ain't no sports teams here on like you literally go to campus to do your work and then you go elsewhere to your dorm, and it's like all that extracurricular stuff where you're spending all this money on clubs and this, that, and the third. It didn't exist. And so I feel like that's why stuff is so expensive. It's not just inflation. It's all these quote unquote added on values that will throw to you in addition for your tuition and fees. And it's just ways for them to take more money from people who are already, unfortunately, paying more than what they need to for education. The whole thing is a crock of shit.
Gotcha. But so making sure that's more of a critique of like the institution or the structure of higher education in general, not specifically HBCUs.
I think it is more of a critique of higher education in general. But I think more HBCUs should adopt that European model of just having school.
Do you think that would allow them? Do you think that allowed them to be competitive in the landscape? I think HBCU culture in itself is a big selling point too. What the HBCU experience is and what a lot of people buy into. It's like the whole cultural aspect. Whether it's a person that went to a predominantly white high school, went to a predominantly white college for a year or two, might be dissociated from, or the people that are from the inner city in which they need to go to a space where they can first get comfortable inside like the environment to be able to properly adjust to like what this independent higher education um thing would be. What do you think?
Well, for me, this might be unpopular opinion, but that's part of why HBCUs are struggling is because people go there for these silly reasons. They're not going there for reasons that actually matter in terms of their learning. Like a lot of times people will make decisions based off of the quote unquote culture of the school, not necessarily the program, not necessarily looking at it from a advantageous situation. And I'm not saying HBCU culture isn't a thing, but like it shouldn't be the thing we hang our hat on when it comes to our schools. Like, what's the culture at MIT, for example? Like what, like only at Black schools do we make that be the thing where it's like Deion Sanders even like, I got to make sure I switch up that band, where it's like, is that really that important? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
I think that that's like a piece of the pie, but you don't think that PWIs have their own versions of culture? To me, when I go to UNC Chapel Hill, and you walk down Franklin Street, you can see like a historical culture of a thing that's there. It looks different than a Black institute, but it's explicitly its own very distinct culture.
all
Um,
schools got culture. So I
right.
wouldn't.
That's what I'm saying. So I wouldn't like just completely like denote that just to like the Black thing in which what sells. Because there's white party schools as well.
And do
But
you think a lot of these schools, make money from these extracurricular activities? Like they're
Right.
necessary. I know, sports is a big focus at ACSU just because of the economic impact it has. Just it brings in so much money. The sports boosters are the largest donators to the school. I don't know if it's just something about playing football, get good job or something, but they donate the most money. Like so, a lot of it is allocated to sports and to the rest of the school. But every other month they present like $1 million check from the Sports Boosters Club. Like it's crazy how much money they get from sports. So I think that culture is important in the sense of donating because it creates that pride in your school. Like I get your point like about an MIT, but if there's a specialty school in an industry where you are having high salaries coming out of tech, coming out of mathematics and things like that. But you don't have any pride for real, to really give back, and they don't have a need, honestly, to give back to those schools. But what the culture does is it creates that sense of pride, that reason you love going to that school, and that reason like you want to give back and keep sending people to go to the school. So I mean, I think for a lot of schools, you can go to PWIs. Like you take away the Tar Heels from Chapel Hill, like I don't know what that school would
Uh,
be in 5 to 10 years. They're
the
gonna be
whole SEC, for the whole SEC is kind of the same thing. We're known for, our football games, and it's like to tie it all together. If we talk about the schools were started by people that weren't fond of Black people, and then it was built on slave money, so we can't catch up because that we can't compete that way. And then, like G said, they are expensive, and we can't make them any cheaper if we lose our revenue stream of you know sports and all that. So tying all that together, it's like it paints a pretty bleak picture.
Like, yo, did you so here's the thing about the sports part, right? Like, because Deion Sanders even talked about the cost and the expense of taking a team, travel, trying to grow, do all this stuff, like, and the fact that these smaller schools will take checks from the bigger schools to get, to play in whatever the case will be, right? So it's like my thing is from a just purely economic perspective. If I'm spending a lot of money and not getting a lot in return, we can trim it. It's just that simple. Not every university has a football team. Now, will it impact appeal or whatever the case? Potentially, like, no, but if you like, it sounds crazy, but to me, it's a fundamental shift. It's like going to school to go to school. Like, it's a crazy idea, right? But it's like, what if the school actually was just there for school, learning, buildings for classrooms, library, computer labs, all the resources you need to learn, and all the extracurriculars is not literally like on campus. Like, you do your extracurriculars in your local city or whatever the case will be. You know what I'm saying? Like, that sounds like a crazy idea, right?
But aren't those schools
I
funded
think
by
that
the government?
it's almost like my bad, Chair. Just want to hop in real quick because I think that to me, what you're saying would have to be a structural change for it to impact HBCUs inside a positive way. Just harkening, like going back to what A Black just said, where, for example, the sports team at Johnson C. Smith brings in the most money pretty much within the school. So, and it's probably the biggest advertiser for the school in itself. So if you take that away, do you think that negatively or positively impacts the institution in general? And then I ask that same question when it comes down to like the school, like, or HBCUs in general. Like, if we was to eliminate all extracurriculars and from the basketball team to the band, football team, XYZ, do you think that would actually help or hinder recruitment? Because again, I guess it asks a bigger question. Do people choose their college only based on academics, or is it kind of like a mix of like academics, culture, XYZ, even going down to like why people would choose an HBCU in general?
And it's also a mix of just where you can get in. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you got to be able to get accepted to these places. You can't just say, I want to go and go too.
I've sat in like a lot of admissions orientations, and they give the presentations to potential and incoming students, and their main draw is we have these sports, we have these activities, we have these organizations. Like the academics, I feel like academics is what you make it, for real. It depends on how much you apply yourself as a student. You can go to CPC down here and still come out, smarter and knowing more than somebody's because you are applying yourself, but you're not getting the culture that you're going to get at Central or A&T or even UNC Charlotte. You're not getting basketball or football games. So, that's what the colleges have to sell for students is like, this is why you need to stay with us for 4 years, because you're going to get your education. If you want your education, you can sit on YouTube all day. You might not get no degree, but you can learn some shit if you really apply yourself. But they're selling the culture. They're selling the history of these schools. They're selling the teams. They're selling the organizations that are surrounding. Like, not only you get your education, but you're becoming a more well-rounded person by being a part of all these other things. Because education, the academic side of education, is only one facet. The education is more than books. It's schooling. It's social norms. It's soft skills. It's learning how to deal in teams and teamwork. And that's what these organizations and these teams and these sports provides. Like, making you ready for the world, going into corporate America or going into any type of job and knowing how to interact with humans, So they need these as selling points. Like, Black schools without these things, like, it'll be it'll be real hard on us, you know, for real.
But I'm saying I think that's a problem. That's what you're pointing out. I feel like is a problem. I know it's a reality, but I feel like that reality is a problem.
But do you think that? I guess for me, I don't think it's like explicitly a black thing though. I think that if you take away sports and organizations from a majority of colleges, they would suffer.
It's only a special kind of person that wants to go to like specialty schools that only focus on schooling. Like I remember even being in high school and I got invited. Y'all are from North Carolina. Y'all might have heard of like it's a math and science camp, not camp, but math and science school.
I used to work at a school of science and math.
And somewhere in North Carolina, you leave during high school, so you're not even staying at home. It's kind of like you're in college.
It's in Durham. It's in Durham. I used to work there.
Yeah, and, I was invited to go there. I went to visit, and I'm just like, I want to go back to West Charlotte. Like,
but see, okay, let's use that as an example because nobody goes there to play sports. Do they have sports teams? Yes, they do.
I know some students that went there. They're very successful now. They all are paid out the ass, and so I know the benefit of it in the long run might be more lucrative, but as far as the living life aspect, you know, that's important to people too. It's like,
yeah, it's a hard to sell.
You need that culture. You want fun. You want reprieve from just like education and like reading and math and science. Like, and it takes a special kind of person, I think, to see past that and like, nah, I don't need none of this stuff. I just need math and science, and I don't mind. So I get what you're saying too, G. Like, it might be a problem. It might be a cultural thing, you know, for real across the board.
Like for example, UNCG. Nobody goes there to go to football or basketball games. Would y'all agree? Like, you might go to a game if you're a student, but like you're not. They don't like they do have a good, I think, D1 soccer team. I think they like do some stuff like on some sports, but like when we talk about like our community, right? Like, you're not going to this school because of the sports teams, right? Like, not every school is going to be a power conference school with dynamic sports.
True, but they do offer those things, and I'll also say that, dude, I had maybe one or two of my brothers. No, two of my brothers went to UNCG. And like what you often hear is like their proximity to like the HBCU does matter inside that, but their proximity, but they feel that they're getting a better education, quote unquote, as a selling point to the school as well, where you can still be adjacent and get that HBCU experience. And then I think they also have this dual like schooling thing where you could take classes on both campuses between the two. And from my understanding, that ends up being like a really big selling point for people that are going there.
I think I have heard that as well. But it's like every school doesn't have to be like, I guess my thing is every kid doesn't want to be a part of that crowd. And there are a lot of kids out there who would be fine with the opportunity to go to school and go like a commuter type of school. And that's not to say these schools don't have intramural clubs and organizations and things like that, like within a school. It's just that it's not built around these, all these corporate entities within the thing, like all these corporations in the food court and all these other companies paying money to advertise on your campus and do all this stuff. It's like, if something's not working, right? Like, how many majors do these schools have? And who actually is like, why can't we make some more specialized HBCUs that just are that just are there to help you get specialized in certain things that we know are going to be important, like an MIT, for example? I'm not saying all HBCUs need to be that way, but like, what's Livingstone got to lose? What's some of these other schools got to lose? Like, trim some of that trash that nobody wants and just make it super lean and super good so that when people come there, they know at minimum, regardless of culture, they'll actually be set up to use their education in a way that's going to help them long term. And we do got one call in waiting.
Okay. So I guess if I was to hop in really quickly on what you just said, do you think that that's a chicken before the egg thing? Like if we just use Livingston, or Livingstone as an example, if you understand what like the camp, well, you know what the campus looks like, I'm sure. Where updates to the campus in itself across the board, from the dorms to the facilities, need to be done. And so then you get into the question of how do I get these funds into the school? And then we start scratching our head and say, well, shit, these activities bring the boosters that bring in the funds to the school. Or how else are we going to get it? And then we get into the idea of like, as we was just having the conversation about, do you have to tap dance for Donald Trump or Biden's dollar? And then, like I said, to me, it becomes a bit of a chicken and the egg conversation. Trey, it seemed like you had something to say.
Right. Basically, you just said what I was going to say, because initially you were comparing us to like foreign schools, but I think they have a whole different structure for how their government funds a lot of these schools. Like even I think it's like social programs where they have a higher tax rate, but that money goes to the school, so they don't have to rely on sports for their funding. So if we don't have that, then I don't think we can just create something that's competitive with a system that doesn't have the infrastructure there in place. And also, if our schools don't have the start that these other schools do with their endowments that are built on, like you said, MIT, somebody said that was like the 1860s. I forgot the dad just looked, I think 1867. All this was built on slave money. So if we get with reparations, I bet you see a lot of the schools like you're talking about. But at the end of the day, we can't just like spend up this money out of thin air to get these things you're talking about.
But okay,
And G, wrap us up on this one.
All right, bet. All these schools, a lot of them are broke as hell, and they got sports teams. That's all I'm saying. It's not like these sports teams are really cracking the bank. Like, if you are in a situation where you're actually not in financial hurt or whatever the case, like a lot of these HBCUs are struggling and they have sports teams. So if it were the case where these sports teams were actually helping pump the funds into the school, maybe a couple do have
isn't
those
that what's
programs.
happening though? Isn't like the sports teams usually like one of the few profitable endeavors in this universities?
How profitable is it?
No, I'm not saying that it's like extremely profitable, but what I'm saying is that it's beneficial to the deficit in general. Like the school would be losing money either way. It's just making it lose less money.
And it helps with recruiting, which brings in more money too.
I just think, I mean, I feel we got two now. I feel where y'all are coming from, but in my opinion, it's just a different way of doing business. It's like, it's just a leaner way of doing business. It's like these things might be true in terms of how it impacts recruitment, but we just would trim fat, in my opinion. Like a lot of stuff can go. It's just not necessary. And that's how I would operate under it. Like it's one thing if the sports are like in Livingston's case, the sport's clearly not helping. Like they clearly need something different. So do something different. Stop doing what you keep doing because it's not working. That's like my thought process.
Damn, G, I want to keep going back and forth, but we got a couple callers. As you bring up the callers, I'll ask the panel this: is college still worth it? Should kids go get a trade instead of going to the student debt? What's your thoughts? Hey, Black, we'll start with you.
I'm gonna have Money T up here.
Okay.
Is college still worth it? I think that question is situational based. It depends on the type of person you are, how you raised, and the tools you raised with. I think in today's society, you can make it without it. There's so much education out here.
can apply yourself. You can get on YouTube. You can start businesses. You can get certifications and different things.
Hey, Black, can I frame it a little bit better for you? Is it is college still worth it? In the idea of pushing the Black community as a whole. If we spoke like more inside generalities instead of individualistic, is it still worth it for us to push our kids, the next generation, to go get a college degree?
If we're talking as a whole, I say yes. Because education is important, and because everybody isn't self-motivated or a self-starter, and a lot of people are late bloomers. So college helps to hone a lot of people's crafts and skills and social skills. It helps to expose and introduce them to new sets of tools and knowledge. There are lots of exceptions, and like I said, that depends on how you're brought up and what you see coming up, where you can go off into the world at 18 and start your own business and be successful with it. But for the most part, I don't think across the board a lot of people are mentally there yet, and college is a good starting point for them to grow. I think it's definitely needed. Education is needed just in general. So I don't think it's completely ruled out. I think some people, like I said, you can make it without it. It's not one of those things where it's like if you don't have a degree, you ain't gonna be shit, and you're gonna be working at McDonald's. Like I think that is dead today. Like if you really apply yourself, and you can learn whatever you want to without college. I just think that most people are not that determined and not that self-motivated to where they bloom a little later. It might take them 19, 20, 21 to kind of get to that point, and college helps propel you when you're surrounded by like minds and your peers. It helps to kind of propel your psyche to grow a little faster and then be ready for the world.
Gotcha. Welcome back, Mr. T Money 1993. Again, let us know your thoughts on the topics. What you agree with, disagree with. This isn't your first time up here, so I ain't got to kind of run down the full rules and regulations. But yeah, T Money, talk to us.
I guess I'm kind of seeing this from a lot of different sides. I think part of it, the problem isn't necessarily the schools. I think the problem is more so us and even parents of before you even get to college. I think a lot of people are not educating themselves on what they want to do, what's the potential of that job, how much you're going to make from that job. Like it's a lot of people who are just getting degrees for jobs that are in this economic time are not going to be like successful. They're not going to make enough to make a living. So I think that's one of the biggest things. Now, as far as with sports and stuff, because I have been a college basketball coach at a small HBCU, they depended on us to have the school. Most of the school was athletes. Most of even 1 year. So once I started coaching, we kind of became one of the best basketball programs at our level. We pretty much won 3 titles in 4 years, that type of stuff. So we started bringing, of course, more people interested in sports. Now, we had a year where we had got them to agree to let most of the upperclassmen basketball players live off campus. What did they tell us the next year? Oh, we needed that money from all them guys as far as board and tuition. So they made them all move back. I think the rule was unless you was like super old, everybody had to move back into the dorm. So a lot of the smaller schools depend on the athletes' money to have a school, in my opinion. And I, like I said, I've seen that firsthand. But
that sounds like slavery.
What? That you got to live in the dorm?
The school, how much? If the university depends on those students to keep the doors open, but don't pay those students, then what do we call that?
That's slavery, man. It's exactly what it is. And
Well,
I mean,
all
if
right.
we doing that,
So I mean,
college sports,
are you making
period. I
like
mean,
the
it still
broad
got
generalization
NIL.
that in general college athletes are slaves? Because if not,
yes,
that's just
Yeah,
literally what college
I'm
that's
just
what the
athletics
saying
has
NCAA
been
is. If we're
that's what
going
it
off
sounds
before
like
the
now.
NIL.
Because it sounds like basically all these schools are just using sports to stay to have funding, but not
bro.
paying the people
Oh no, again,
responsible.
like if as long as you're not like individualizing that to like
Oh yeah, don't say that's an
HBCUs.
HBCU problem. That's an NCAA problem.
And I'm saying that just a
Straight
school
up.
problem in general. Like if you're
Oh,
relying
okay.
on students, athletes to keep your doors open, and those student athletes are making all the money, more than the professors, more than the researchers, more than everything else that the school is doing to bring in revenue, but then they don't get any sort of share or splits in said revenue, no boosts, incentives, any of that stuff. Like maybe slavery is extreme, but it's servitude at a minimum, no doubt. Like that's it's
Does the degree in
abusive.
education not count for anything?
No, because they could
Oh,
get their own.
okay.
They could, if they were paid what they were worth, then they could buy their own education and still have some. But if you want to say slavery, we have to at least say it's like Kanye said, the slavery that was a choice.
But
I guess
one thing that
I
you
don't.
said, Q, that I did agree with is because my little sister goes to UNCG now. UNCG definitely sells that whole part of our experience is that you right here near A&T and you can still get your HBCU experience while you're here. They definitely sell that because I was with her years ago at her orientation, and they definitely sold that as a point. Well, A&T's right here, so and they get into that argument all the time because UNCG people be trying to claim sometimes that they sort of like a HBCU.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard it, so I understand it. Hey, T Money, if you don't mind, you can hang around. We got one more call in the back, or at least another call. We might have a couple more.
Yeah,
But
we got one more.
yeah, bring them up, and we'll continue the conversation. Camo, talk to us, Camo.
Yo, how's it going, bros?
Doing good, doing good, doing good.
No, it's Kamu.
Okay,
Can you
Camu.
try to say that? Sure.
Camu.
Yeah. So I want to deal with this on a more systematic level. Okay. So I have a question for you guys. Are your HBCUs funded by the government?
Partially.
A lot of them are to a certain degree.
Most of the state schools, yeah.
Oh, meaning there are exceptions.
It's a combination. Like some of them are funded by churches.
Yeah, he said how many
Okay.
are exceptions. So that will go down the line of like privately owned
Private.
HBCUs, right?
Private schools, but they can still get government funding.
Okay.
The school that I
So
coached
the
at,
ones
they're privately funded by the church, but they also like when the government be giving them money, they do begin. So
okay. So most of them are funded by the government. Those that are not are funded by the church, right?
By the church are the banks, are endowments,
The white banks.
Yeah, white banks.
White banks, bro.
Yeah.
Right. After they stole all our wealth.
Wells Fargo.
So Trey, how's it going, bro? FBS very own.
Good.
So you guys, I'm from South Africa, and we are only 30 years old, right? I guess to Q, G, and Mr. Mayor, I'm a brother. To Trey, I'm sort of like I'm a tether. So we are 30 years old.
So
we are 30 years old.
That means you're here to undermine us. If you're a tether, my bad. You say you're a tether, that means you're here to undermine. Because you're from Nelson Mandela isn't a tether and he's from South Africa, right?
Oh, okay, he's not. Nah,
he's
bro.
definitely
No,
not a tether.
you need to know this. No. Trey, I've been listening to this show for a minute.
No, I mean I'm telling you, a tether is what you do, it's not where you're from. Just like it's like a
So
coon
it's a
from
coon.
Yeah, exactly. Like
A coon
it can be a coon
from
the
non-American coon.
Exactly. It's a foreign coon. We have our domestic coons and we have our foreign coons. If you
So we
for
all
the people,
good. Okay.
yeah.
So you guys 158 years old, if I'm not mistaken. You've been free, quote unquote, for 158 years old.
Well, do you think you're free if you're not able to vote and participate in any elections and you have no rights?
Exactly my point. So you guys have been liberated for 150 years, 58 years old, and you still have land that you need to build your own.
That's
the
not
point
true.
I'm making is
any rights until one generation ago. Until one generation, the Supreme Court said,
we're gonna
hear me out. The Supreme Court decision said up until the 1960s that a black man in America has no rights that a white man has to respect. So if you want to call that free while being taxed, then I think you have to use that term loosely because they were also destroying our towns and murdering us wholesale with impunity. If you want to call that freedom, then
Trey, let's let him
let
Famo finish out the whole point. Then I'll give you like the first response to whatever he says.
Okay. Oh, my point was, bro, like America is like one of the oldest nations, sort of like a vanguard for black reality across the world. Okay, so people in Africa, Europe, and the rest of the world look up to Americans in a lot of avenues. You talk about culture, music, all of these things. We even try to talk like you guys do, because English is
Is he breaking up on your end also?
Yeah.
You started breaking up for a second.
Yeah, we can't hear you, dog.
Yeah, we can't hear you right now.
Oh man.
Yeah. It sounded like I wanted to hear where he was about to get to. It seemed like a really interesting.
Man, I know what he was about to say. He was about to say, y'all been free for 150 years, and look what y'all done with it. Y'all didn't really do nothing.
Still can't hear you, Kamu. Well, I don't know. It sounded like I was interested to see because he asked very pointed questions for a reason, but I wasn't able to discern exactly where it was going to go to.
You think if he can like refresh it somehow or pop back in?
Yeah, I about to say, hey, Kamu, leave out and then come back in, and we'll see if that works with it. We still can't hear you at all. But yeah, while we're still kind of figuring it out, G, I'll let you hear your response on it. Is college still worth it? Or should kids just go get a trade?
I think getting trades should definitely be in more consideration than what it currently is. Like that is an option, a real option that we should be taking advantage of. But I'm a big believer in education, man. Like, you know, higher ed as a business and and how it functions and all that stuff is one thing. But I'm a big believer in the power of learning, right? And I would never encourage young black folks to not go to college. I would never do that. So I think that's something that we should strive for personally. We'll see if we back up here.
I think the bigger problem though is educating yourself outside of the education.
Audible.
A lot of people don't want to do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we can hear you now.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Q, what's up, bro?
Nothing much. We got you.
Oh,
all right, keep going. We couldn't hear you the last time you kind of was getting into your point after.
Sure. So the point I was making is America, it's a vanguard for black reality across the world. So if you guys are 150 and you still don't own any institution of higher learning, that trickles down to the rest of the black world. So if America relies on a government that they don't even Black America, sorry, if Black America relies on a government that they don't even constitute a majority of for their educational survival, that sets a wrong precedence around education across the entire Black reality. So here in South Africa, we have we inherited from 1994. We inherited 24 universities, and then we built 2. Right, Black government built 2 universities to show that white supremacy, bro, doesn't fuck with us. In these 30 years, because a lot of us were starting to go to institutions of higher learning, the Afrikaans community built their own independent university. So Afrikaans, we took them out of power for 30 years, and they built their own university within 30 years. You guys, Afrikaans is white people, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have been free for 150 years, and you still rely on church and government and all of these things to build for you guys. I think you need to up your game, and yeah, I just don't agree with how you guys are going about this thing.
Isn't that what I just said he was going to say? He was going to say, basically, Black people, we haven't built anything because we haven't tried to. It has nothing to do with the fact that they burned down all our towns and looted and flooded all of our towns like 2 generations ago. It's because we just wanted to rely on the white man. It has nothing to do with them killing Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and everyone else that were our writers who were working on those things. It's just because we aren't as good as, we didn't work as hard as these Africans. Even though in Africa,
but let's be honest. Let's be honest, bro. Since the death of MLK, you guys haven't tried to do anything for it. Let's be honest, bro. Since MLK,
you said we haven't tried to do anything for ourselves. Do you know about the mass incarceration and how the CIA put crack in our neighborhoods?
That I get. Mass incarceration, Bill. Who's this guy? Bill Clinton crime bill and
Joe Biden too.
Yeah, sure. That I get. But you're not
where
doing
in South Africa. Where in South Africa are you from? Where in South Africa?
Johannesburg.
Have you
Johannesburg, bro?
And have you? Is that where you spent all of your time?
Yeah. Sure, in the hood, bro.
And have you spent all of your time in Johannesburg or in South Africa? Have you been to other, say, non-African countries, for example?
No, sir. I've spent my time down here.
Okay. So you haven't really quite felt the Black experience in America like firsthand. That's something that you can't say that you've ever experienced.
Nah, I haven't.
Okay. I think when folks of the diaspora speak about Black Americans, and they don't have a lens of the Black American experience, it comes off very like I guess that would be the tether babble piece to it all, because it comes off kind of like like you give us say the compliment of you guys are the whatever you say for all of Black people, but then say you Black folks need to do better, you're not doing enough. So like, which one is it? Is it that we're the cream of the crop that everybody's looking up to set a standard for what Blackness looks like? Or are you saying that we haven't done anything for ourselves? I just want to get a clarity there.
Interesting. All I'm saying, bro, it's like Black Americans exist in a first world country and the country that leads the world. That's a fact.
Yes.
So America, bro, it's like quote unquote the land of the free, and you guys are there. So to some extent, everyone is looking up to you guys. I mean, we watch your television, we listen to your music,
But wait,
even your fashion.
our television is not the television that you watch of black people. I'm willing to bet is probably not black owned media. I'm willing to bet that it's not black owned media. So you might see
we have BT.
That's not black owned media, my brother.
Right. It's white Jewish.
So that fits to my point as well. That fits to my point. How do you guys allow us to be fed garbage when you know it's not good, bro? Like that's what we get over here.
This is why I say it's tough when you've never been here to feel that black experience yourself, because that is what you're pointing out is a lot of black Americans are not happy with the way our images are portrayed in this media. A lot of black folks don't like how things are ran, and they're trying to create their own independent institutions. But unfortunately, these aren't the things that get the most money and the most funding. So it's not the things that's going to get exported.
But you guys are a $2 trillion people, aren't you?
I think that's allegedly, but I guess there's a couple pieces to it. You did just ask the question of how could we allow that to be pushed out to the world. I think something to keep in mind is that we are still a minority in the country, a hyper minority, especially if you can in comparison to Africa. South Africa, inside where you have like your comparison point to. So with that, there is a lack of resources in which then we start speaking about our not inability, but like ownership stakes inside the companies that would allow us to push our actual image inside a light and be able to produce the things inside a specific light on a global stage. So I think that'll be kind of like one of the ways to kind of answer the question that you was asking. Two, I did want to address the Afrikaans University, I guess, statement or hypothesis that you kind of produce. I do think that it is a bit of comparing apples and oranges, right? Where, I guess that there's two different ways of looking at this. That, as you were saying, that I kind of thought through. One, do you discount the power of like quote unquote global white supremacy and the resources that does come with that? And two,
no,
do you ignore the idea that these Afrikaans have power and resource, or did have power and resources at a point in time, for an extended point of time, and comparing what people that have had power and resources could do inside a small amount of time in comparison to a people that have been continually stripped of power and resources, and intentionally made sure that they don't gain those things. To me, I think that it's not like a fair comparison. Love to hear your response.
I hear you, bro. Thank you. I hear you, Q. It's first of all, I'm well aware of international white supremacy. And I think, and also I'm not ignorant of Black American efforts when it comes to self-determination on all those type of things. I'm aware of Tulsa. What is it? Oklahoma? Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm aware of that, and other.
That's like one example. There's a levy of those examples.
There's a lot of examples.
Multiple.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm aware of that, and I'm very sensitive to that. And the point I'm making is, Black America, bro, will not win without the rest of us, and we also will not win without the diaspora. I'm including the Caribbeans, South and Central America, and Black America. We will not win without holding hands, because white supremacy, bro, these guys here, bro, they constitute like 5% of the population, but they are very powerful because of the international link. They're linked to BlackRock, American corporations, you name them, bro. They're linked to these guys here. So Black America will never win, brother Trey. if you don't link your struggle to ours.
Oh no, I was gonna say my bad.
Sure.
Camu, I got caught in the crossfire. You was directing all that to Trey. Let Trey step in here and like you got a straight beeline. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, if we're asking questions about each other, let me return the question to you. Like, why is it that 81% of South Africans are black, but they only have 5% of the wealth of white South Africans as a majority? Because think about what we've accomplished as at only 14%, we've been able to fight back. Like, why are y'all being ruled by a minority of white people who's hoarded all the wealth so bad that even when you were a majority of the country, you didn't even free Nelson Mandela? Imagine if black people in America were 80-something% of the population. Do you think we allow them like a small percentage of white people to be able to get over on us this way?
Yeah, I don't know about going there. Because we have our own problems with who we let walk around and who we let do whatever.
But we're not 80%. We're not 80%, bro. We're 14%. There's strength in numbers.
For as much as black people act like we wouldn't allow this, we wouldn't allow this right now. George Zimmerman's still walking around somewhere.
That's in Florida, bro.
Still walking around somewhere.
That's Florida. So that's mostly Haitians. But we're not 80% of the population at the end of the day.
I mean, I think this is a problem, though.
We're not 80% of the population.
With no knowledge of self, you are taught to split up. You're forced to split up. So even if a black person did open up a college,
we're not 80% of the population, bro. So you're comparing us to what we're able to accomplish when our numbers are nowhere near the majority. To a person that is a majority.
Being a majority to that doesn't even matter.
T and Trey. Let's let Camu hop in real quick and answer the question. Then y'all can get right back to it.
Thank you. The mistake that we made here, bro, it's South Africa didn't learn from Ghana. Ghana doesn't have white people. They're still not free. Ghana was the first African nation to get independence. They're still not free today, bro. There's no white people there. So racism and white supremacy doesn't need white privilege to okay, number one. Number two, we don't learn from each other, and then we don't also, number two, we don't tie our struggle together. So South Africa did not learn from Ghana. Ghana did not learn from America. America did not learn from Haiti. So Haiti was the first black republic to be established. Till this day, bro, the French. Sorry?
Haiti is in squalor. What can we learn from people who are in squalor?
Oh shit,
bro! How do you think that the Louisiana Purchase was made, bro?
You said, what can we learn? What can Haitians teach us from the Shanty?
Exactly, yeah. They're older than you, bro.
But what can they teach us?
They just refer to the Haitian Revolution and not their current status.
Oh, that very condescending attitude, bro, is the same reason we are the bottom of the battle across the world. We don't learn from each other. Haiti is still suffering today. Sorry?
I said, I'm just returning your same energy.
Haiti.
We can learn from Haiti. And then Haiti's like,
Haiti is still suffering today. Tribalism.
Yes, in Haiti, they are allowing foreigners, they can't get together on their own. Black people have embodied unity.
Why is that? Why is that?
You know what I'm saying? We don't have the same tribalism in America that they have across the diaspora. Like
I might give that to you. You don't have that, but you don't pull your resources together, bro. You don't. You are 2 trillion people.
Who puts their resources together in the diaspora to do anything meaningful?
Exactly my point. No one does, but does that make it right?
But you're saying we can learn from Haiti, and I'm asking you, what can we learn from Haiti when they aren't doing anything that's...
Okay, let me tell you what you could learn from Haiti, bro. Haiti is still suffering for embarrassing, who is this guy?
French, Napoleon.
Napoleon. They're still suffering from that. Till this day, bro, white supremacy is still kicking their ass.
But what can we learn though from Haiti? Like
that, bro, you don't do concessions with white people. You don't make agreements with them. You don't rely on white supremacy for shit, bro, for nothing. So with your universities and shit, bro, you're not getting anywhere because they still fund you. Until you build your own, you'll never be free.
And we agree with that. That's why we spent most of this conversation talking about the BOULE and the people who are in power and the gatekeepers that take the handout from white supremacy and don't do anything for the masses. That's widely known across Black America. And we know that everything we've achieved has come from people on the streets fighting for it. We didn't get anything by asking the white man. We know this. That's why we respect Malcolm X and we respect Martin Luther King, who said, I'm coming to get our check before they killed him. That was a major setback, and we're still recovering, especially with the drug epidemic and the crack epidemic and everything they've done to us. We're still fighting. It's not like we've given up hope or anything like that, and we never have relied on white people for anything except for what they forced us to by stealing what we had to be able to, to be a part of the government. Also, if the government is doing things for all these people, I think we have a legitimate right to demand that the government do for the same for us as they do for other people. So we're not begging them to do anything other than they were supposed to do anyway.
I think I agree with you on the first part, but the second one, government shouldn't be doing shit for you, bro.
But they're doing
or
it
else you will suffer.
But they're doing
Yeah,
it for
well-
everyone else.
Can I say something?
That's just not common sense.
I agree with both of y'all.
I
I think what Kamu's saying is like we shouldn't depend on the government, and what Trey's saying, the government is just giving what they owe us. So it's not like we're looking for the government's help or depending on them. They're just paying what they already owe us, and then we can kind of use that to build our institutions and build the things for ourselves. Like, so it's not like we need a government handout. This stuff is already interest of things that we've worked and built this country upon. So they owe us this already, so it's like.
But that logic is crazy though.
I mean, it's true though. You giving us
Why
something.
But why would you
so
demand-
forgive the debt, T-Money? Forgive the
Why
debt.
would-
That's what you're saying?
No,
forgive
I'm
it.
saying,
Forgive the
I'm
debt.
saying, why do you think you would be treated fairly? Why do you think the people who oppressed you for hundreds of years?
I don't. I agree with you, T-May. I don't. But I'm saying that doesn't still denote that they don't owe us this. I don't think they'll ever give us reparations. I want reparations. I agree with reparations. I don't think we're ever going to get it because
That's
of
like
what
if a
you
bully
You ain't getting-
beats you every day for the whole school
getting
year,
scared.
and you demand for him to stop bullying you. Why do you think he would? He's
Bro,
already-
on the
agree.
on the plantations, you think they ever thought we'd be free? You think we'd ever thought we'd get over Jim Crow? No, but we demand it and we stand on it and we fight for it and we don't give up. We don't have a defeatist mindset. We're gonna get what we owe.
You let Abraham Lincoln sign a piece of paper.
No,
didn't
we
demand
fought in
that.
the Union, bro. The Union would have lost the war if not for foundational Black Americans. And Abraham Lincoln said that himself.
If we're going off of that logic, I mean, America never would have been a country because by logic, we should have been fighting for the British. Because at least the British was pretending they was gonna free us.
And we did fight for the British. We fought in every war in this country's ever
It
fought.
was a
That's
lot
why
of
they
black
owe
people
us
on the other side
reparations.
fighting for America too, though. I just don't think
Right.
it's smart to demand something from somebody you know who oppress you.
I don't think it's smart to forgive debts and forgive and forget and then not press them to get what you're owed and just have a defeatist mentality. I think that's called a victim mentality. When you
Hey,
just
fellas,
accept your
so
role as a
really
victim.
quickly, obviously we found our way back into a FBA versus Pan African conversation. I think it's healthy. Yeah,
That's where it
it's
should have
fun.
been in the first place, man.
But we are at about 7 minutes left. So what I like to do is give everybody on the panel. We'll just kind of go clockwise to kind of give their ending statements on whether you want to go with the topic or what we are at in conversation in general. That they know, that everybody know where they can find you at. And yeah, so we'll go start from G, then we'll go to Trey, then A Black, then T Money, and Kamu will leave you with the last word. G.
Yo, G, appreciate everybody joining. Make sure y'all tap into the G Shit podcast wherever you enjoy your podcasts at GSHPOD. You can search that hashtag GSHPOD and find it on all platforms. And support HBCUs, man. We know higher education has its flaws, but college is a powerful experience, and we should be promoting that, man. Hi.
FBA Trey.
Muted.
You're muted, my boy.
Well, power to the people. Peace and reparations to everyone.
Hey, Black.
Yeah, man. Knowledge is power. Education is key. I believe, HBCUs are very important for those who understand the Black experience. It was our only place to get educated at one point, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done that we need to share with the diaspora as well as building ourselves up. So, we all got the same enemy, whether it's here or in South Africa or in Brazil or wherever Black people have melanated skin. We have the same enemy. We need to be working together, learning from history, learning from each other's mistakes, and seeing how we can all be better.
Gotcha. T1. Well, it looks like FBA. He got what you got real quick.
All right, it's closing, man.
I'm hearing this. Hey, this is a reparations rally on June 16th, and there's a website, Rally for Reparations, where it's a GoFundMe where we're building up to make it.
Put it in the comments.
All right, for sure.
T Money.
I would just say, as far as college and education, period, it's also important to educate yourself outside of the education. Too many people are dependent on the normal education system, high school, college, like people not out reading outside of that, people not learning outside of that. And to me, that's just one of the biggest issues. And another issue for me is that as a community, you have to come together, whether it's learning from you can learn from anybody. You can learn from the poorest person. You can learn from the richest person. That's just my opinion. Also, I'm almost scared to ask G, but Mr. T Money 1993 is my YouTube channel. It's a lot of sports. That's why I'm scared to ask G, but I do other stuff on there.
What you were scared to ask G?
Oh, about, because it's a football channel, the way he was acting about sports at HBCUs. I'm scared to ask him, check it out.
Oh, I watch sports. I'm mad I didn't see what Luka did to the OKC just now, but it's all good. I still like sports. I'll fuck with the channel, no doubt.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Camus, talk to us. South Africa zone. You said Johannesburg, right?
My brothers and sisters, I'd like to say that Black America is very important. And you guys need to be cognizant of that fact. And until you own and design your own educational curricula, forget about being free and forget about Black progress worldwide, because you guys are the trendsetters. What you do, the rest of us do. So it's very important that you take charge. I know it's hard. Fighting white supremacy is not easy. Hold hands with the rest of us. Hold hands with your brothers and sisters in the Caribbean. And Africa loves you guys. And I'd like to see Trey at some point visiting South Africa. And yeah, thank you. Follow me on Twitter. It's Kamu Muloi. Yeah, thanks.
All right, fire. Hey, we much appreciation. And again, this kind of wraps up the conversation. Have HBCU sold us out? Is college still worth it? And I guess my opinion is, I think that there's definitely a place and an importance for HBCUs within Black culture, within the Black diaspora, within the global Black community. And if you just look at the numbers, you earn more. Like people over a lifetime earn more with college degrees, and I think that pushing Black kids to be competitive in the landscape of what the future looks like, and finding, I say explicitly, STEM careers is big, is major. This has been Unpacked. Presented to you by the To Be Fair Show, presented to you by the G-ish podcast. Again, G, Trey, A Black, Special Call-ins, T Money, Kamu from South Africa. Again, find us here 9:30 next Wednesday. We'll have another fire topic for you. And that's it. Peace and love, y'all.